Mic check for the YouTube stream. We're doing a mic check for the YouTube stream.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the City of Toronto Committee of Adjustment, Scarborough District. Today is June 23rd, 2022, and we are in our afternoon session. Due to the COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted virtually by electronic means through the WebEx webinar, which is an online digital platform, and it's streamed onto the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using the WebEx webinar, which is moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on the YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone. All participants will be automatically unmuted on their entry when your item is called. Each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Before we begin, we acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Chippewas and Chippewa bands and Mississaugas. In accordance with Section 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is now called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to a property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever property to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on any application must submit a written request for the decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and an email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body, which is the TLAB, will be sending notifications and appeals updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, the TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal, which is the OLT. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. In terms of the hearing procedure, I will call each item in the order that is listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or the applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak with the committee. The committee may ask questions or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or the agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching the 5 minutes. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters that are outlined in the application only. Matters that are outside of the jurisdiction of this committee will not be entertained. The applicant or the agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to the proposals at the hearing today and may decide to defer the application if it is substantially revised so that to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those who are entitled to receive the notice of application are informed of the revisions. Then individuals who are either in support or in opposition to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished the presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or the agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. I would like to reiterate the fact that repeating the same comments again will not advance your cause. If you have a group, you may wish to select a spokesperson to convey your concerns to the committee today. Are there any declarations of interest of panel or staff for items listed in the afternoon slot for items 18 to the balance of the agenda? Are there any conflicts of interest of staff or panel members? I see none. All right. Mr. Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have you received any requests for deferral for these items?
Through the chair, there are no requests for deferral for the afternoon session.
Okay, thank you very much. So I can confirm there are no requests for deferrals for the afternoon session, which includes items 18 to item 28. I will now proceed with the vetting of the agenda. I will start with the order listed on the agenda, starting from the first application in the afternoon session, item 18. For item 18, this is 1078 Midland Avenue. I don't see there are any listed neighbors or registered speakers from the neighborhood. Can I please have the agent Priyal Kapadia? Thank you. Priyal, you with us?
Hello, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Thank you, Priyal. So, Priyal, we have your application before us, and we are looking at your application. Do you have any comments at this time?
Yeah, I would like to have a small presentation.
Okay, so we're going to hold down this item and come back to it then? Okay?
No.
All right. So item 18 is being held as the applicant would like to...
No, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am. Sorry, actually, I just wanted to make the presentation regarding the variances, just that. Otherwise, it's fine.
Okay, so I'm vetting the agenda.
Sorry.
That's okay. Because I'm vetting the agenda, so I'm only going to be asking if you want to make a comment or anything. If you want to present, then we'll hold down the item. No? Okay.
No,
Members of the
no.
committee, any questions for Priyal? I see none. All right. So Priyal, you want to make a comment only at this time?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
And are you aware of the conditions of urban forestry?
Yeah, I'm aware of the conditions.
And community planning staff report as well?
Yeah. Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, perfect. Members of the committee, if there are no questions for Priyal, could you please forward? Is there any question or comment? I see none. All right. Can I have a motion then? Member Said, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand, as the applicant mentioned, they have the understanding about the conditions, urban forestry, as well as the community planning report recommendations. So in view of that, I move the motion for approval of item number 18 as amended, subject to the condition of urban forestry condition 2 and 3 and community planning staff report recommendations.
Okay, and may I have a seconder, please? Member Gary, please go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll second that motion to approve with those conditions. Thank you.
And all in favor of this session? Carried. The application has been approved subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee.
Okay, we move on to item 19. Item 19 is 35 DUNCOMBE Boulevard, and I see there's a list of registered speakers, so we will hold down this item. Item 19 for 35 DUNCOMBE Boulevard is being held for further discussion. Item 20 is 8 Mornington Gate. There are no registered speakers. Can we have Yasu, the agent? Hello, Yasu.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Yasu Somalingam, authorized agent on this application.
All right. Yasu, you're familiar with the urban forestry conditions?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, do you have a comment at this time?
No?
All right. Members of the committee, any questions for Yasu? I see none. All right. If there are no questions or comments, can I please have a motion? There are conditions of urban forestry. Member Taylor, go ahead, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, this appears to be a very straightforward application. I'm satisfied that the 9 variances meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. and I move approval subject to urban forestry condition number 2.
Thank you. May I have a seconder, please? Member Gary, go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm pleased to second that motion to approve, subject to the urban forestry condition. Thank you.
Thank you. And all in favor of this motion? The motion's carried unanimously and the application is approved. Thank you. We now go to item 21. Item 21 is 755 Morrish Road. And there are no registered speakers. Can we have the agent Sanaz Noori?
Good afternoon. This is Sanaz Noori at 220 Duncan Mill Road, Toronto.
Okay, thank you very much, Sanaz. Are you aware of the conditions of urban forestry number 2? And do you have any concerns with that condition?
We have submitted the forestry permit, so there should be no other conditions on the decision.
Okay, all right. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for Sanaz? I see none. All right. If there are no comments, can I please have a motion? Member Said, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A very simple, straightforward application, just having one variance in front of me, which is the front yard setback, and that too from the center of the road. So I'm okay with that. I move the motion for approval of item number 21, subject to the urban forestry condition number 2.
Okay, thank you. May I have a seconder, please? Member Taylor, go ahead, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. And all in favor of this motion? The motion is carried and the application for 755 Morrish Road has been approved, subject to condition of urban forestry. Thank you.
Thank you. I have just one quick question. Because we submitted the requested permit to Committee of Adjustment, are you going to add the condition to the decision? Because it's already been taken care of.
So, yes, we will add the condition. If it has already been taken care of through the Urban Forestry Department, they will consider as the condition has been met. But we have no record from you, Urban Forestry, suggesting that that condition has been satisfied. If you think it has been satisfied, I'm sure they will sign off on that condition at the time.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. We move on to our next item, item 22. Item 22 is 3895 McNicoll Avenue, and there are no registered speakers on this application. Can we please have the architect, Henry Ma, please? Hello, Henry.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committees.
Good afternoon, Henry. So we have your consent application that had lapsed before us today.
That's correct.
And you are aware of the engineering services memo regarding the technical and engineering drawings and requirements?
Yes, madam.
Okay, all right. Members of the committee, any concerns with this application or questions for Henry? 3895 McNicoll Avenue. I see none. All right. If there are no questions or comments, can I please have a motion? Oh, Anne, sorry. Sorry, I don't know why I didn't see that. Sorry, Anne, go ahead, please.
I propose approval of this consent application subject to the conditions of development engineering.
Thank you. And may I have a seconder, please? Member Gary, you had your hand up. Would you like to second it?
I will, Madam Chair. I second that approval along with the engineering condition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And all in favor of this motion? The motion is carried and the application has been approved with conditions of engineering services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 23 is 40 Huntingwood Drive. And there is a list of registered speakers, so we will hold down to it on this item and come back to it. 40 Huntingwood Drive is being held for further discussion. This is item 23. Item 24 is 95 Fairglen Avenue. And once again, we have a list of registered speakers. So we will hold down this item and come back to it. Yes. I will. Okay, 24 is being held for further discussion. Now I'm 25.
Yeah, through the chair, the registered speaker is not present.
Okay.
Yuri?
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so we are now moving to item 25. And item 25 is 54 Park Street. I understand that one of the neighbors who had registered has not signed in. So we can continue with this item through the vetting. So for item 25, can we have Jesse, Raju, Kenneth, please? All right, Jesse, are you with us?
Hello, can you hear me, Madam Chair?
I can hear you now. So Jesse, we have your application before us.
Yes.
And do you have any comment on this application? This is a consent application and associated minor variance applications. And there were comments from urban forestry and engineering and Metrolinx. Do you have any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair. No, we are aware of these conditions.
Okay. Members of the committee, do you have any questions of Jesse right now? We're dealing with the consent and associated minor variance applications for 54 Park Street. Okay, I don't see any hands up. So if you do not have any questions for Jesse, then can I please have a motion? Member Said, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Jesse, for understanding the urban forestry condition as well as Madam Chair mentioned, ECS conditions and Metrolinx condition there. With that, I move the motion for approval of consent application B0020/21SC for approval, subject to the condition of ECS and Metrolinx, as well as the urban forestry condition number 1 and condition number 2, 3.
Thank you. And may I have a seconder, please? Member Macaulay, go ahead, please.
I will second that motion for approval of the consent subject to conditions.
Thank you. And all in favor of this motion? The motion is carried and the application for consent for 54 Park Street has been approved. Now, I would like to have a motion on the associated minor variance applications, please. Can I have a motion? Member Said, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the motion for approval of minor variance application A0032/21SC, A003321SC for approval.
And may I have a seconder, please? Member Macaulay, please go ahead.
I will second that motion for approval of those two variances.
Thank you. And all in favor of this motion? And the motion is carried and the associated minor variance applications for 54 Park Street have been approved. Thank you. We move to item 26. Item 26 is 6 Ardell Avenue. There are no registered speakers. Can I please have the agent Yasu Somalingam? Hello, Yasu?
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes, Madam Chair, this is Yasu Somalingam, authorized agent on this.
Okay, thank you. Yasu, you're aware of the conditions of ECS and urban forestry?
Yes, Madam Chair, we agree with those conditions.
Okay, all right. Members of the committee, any questions for Yasu? Member Said?
Yes, so I am talking about the minor variance associated to this application. Variance number 11, which is about the soft landscaping. And is there any way you can remove this variance? There is hardly a little bit difference in there, right? I don't know how you calculate on that, but it's very minor. I'm just talking about out of curiosity on that. So variance number 11.
Oh, so 75% versus 74.91?
Okay, yeah,
Madam Chair.
I'll comply to that.
You'll comply.
I completed that variance, so we can remove that variance, you're right.
Perfect.
So you want to withdraw variance number 11?
That's correct.
And is that consistent for both the applications?
Both application, you're right.
Okay, so application number A0387/21SC and application number A0388/21SC. For both, the variance number 11 is being withdrawn by the applicant.
Through the chair, for future clarity, it's actually, the variance numbers are different for each one. I believe A387, it's variance number 11, and for variance A0388, it's variance number 10.
Okay, which is slightly different actually. It's from 50% to 45.95. Okay, so Yasu, you are in, so you understand there's a little difference for the landscaping for the Part B, I believe it is, for the third application?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. We can comply that.
You can comply, okay. All right, so staff, both the variances associated to the landscaping is being withdrawn for both the minor variance applications. On that note, if there are no further questions or comments, can I please have a motion? Member Said.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the motion for approval of item number 26, subject to the ECS conditions as well as subject to the urban forestry condition number 3.
Okay, and may I have a seconder, please? Member Taylor?
Could I, Madam Chair, I'd like to propose a modification to the condition of approval. It would be urban forestry condition 3 times 2. Is that okay with Member Said? It's not just condition 3, it's condition 3 twice. Correct?
All right, it's two times.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I on that basis, I second the motion to approve the consent application.
Okay, thank you, Member Taylor. And all in favor of this motion? Motion's carried, and the application B0073/21SC for 6 Ardell Avenue has been approved, subject to conditions of urban forestry and ECS. Now,
Thank you very much.
okay, can we deal with the minor variance applications now?
I think we did.
Oh, we did. You did it all together? Okay.
Yeah.
Through the chair, that was a consent application. I would suggest that the minor variance application, if the committee approves it, it's approved as amended, no conditions.
Okay, so can I go back to the committee members? When the motion was put out, was it for all the 3 applications?
Chair, it was only for the consent application.
I agree.
Okay, so then we do need the motion for minor variance applications. Okay, so for the minor variance applications, please remember that the application has been amended. So go ahead, please. Member Taylor, please go ahead.
So I'll move approval of both minor variance applications with an amendment to A0388-21SC to remove variance number 11. And I don't believe there was a variance number 11 in the other variance application.
It's variance number 10 for the other one.
Oh. Well, okay, then we haven't, the applicant agreed to remove variance 11 because it was very close to the zoning requirement.
Member Taylor, I confirmed with him.
However,
I confirmed with him. Yeah, I confirmed with him. He was okay to remove the other one as well.
Oh, from both?
From both. We can double check with
Okay.
him. We can double check with him. So Yasu, can we have you?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm okay to remove variance number 11 on this one and variance number 10 on the other one.
Okay, but are you leaving number 10 then on the other one? Because the variances are identical. 45.95% proposed compared to 50% required. So you're going to live with that for one and not with the other?
But he's living with both of them.
Oh, yeah, the numbers change, but I think that he's addressed both, so that one variance drops away in each application.
Oh, I see what
Is
he
that
means.
right, guys?
So I think Member Taylor is right. So I'm going to say for item 26B, there are two variances, variance number 10 and 11. Both deal with the front yard landscaping. One is a minimum of 50%, and what's being proposed is 45.95, and variance 11 is 75% and 74.91. And then for the other application, which is items 26C, there is only one variance, number 10, which is 50% versus 45.95. Okay?
Correct.
So, Yasu, you are confirming that for 26B, you will withdraw 10 and 11, and for item 26C, you will withdraw variance 10.
Yes.
Thank you for that catch, Member Taylor. All right.
Okay, I'm hoping my motion will be successful without me repeating the numbers. But 10 is deleted from one of them, and 10 and 11 are deleted from the other one.
That is correct.
And on that basis, I move approval without conditions.
Perfect. We have a second.
Is that sufficient?
That is very sufficient, and I hope it doesn't get repeated.
Okay, good.
Member McCauley.
I second the motion.
Perfect. All in favor? The motion is carried and the applications are approved as amended.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next item, item 27. And we have registered speakers on this application, so we will hold down item 27. Item 27 for 62 Alistair Avenue is being held for further discussion. And the next one, item 28, which is 66 Colonial Avenue. There are registered speakers on this application, so we will hold down this item as well. Item 28, which is 66 Colonial Avenue, is being 66. It says 66. It is 60? Okay, anyways, item 28 is being held for further discussion. We will confirm the addresses when we get to the discussion, but it is item 28 which is being held.
Through the chair, it is 66 Colonial. My apologies.
Okay, no problem. Okay, I will go through the list again to recap the items that are being held for this session. Item 19, item 23, item 24, item 27, and item 28. Okay. All right. So we move to the first item for discussion, and that would be item number 19. Item 19 is 35 DUNCOMBE Boulevard. And can I please have Michael Bateman?
Michael Bateman, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Michael Bateman. Michael, is the owner also going to be speaking today?
He told me he will be, but I'm not sure if he registered or not. But
Okay, I will check. So can we have the
he was trying to, yes.
Yeah, can we have the owner, Giuliano Mehmed? Okay.
Yes,
Hello.
hi, good afternoon, Madam Committee. This is Giuliano Mehmed.
Mm-hmm. So Giuliano, would you also be speaking on this application today?
To answer some questions if necessary. Yes.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you very much. All right, so Michael, we have your application before us. It's a minor variance application. Would you like to present, or would you like to go directly to the questions?
I would like to present.
Sure, so you have 5 minutes, Michael. Your time starts now, so please go ahead.
Okay. This project was originally fully approved as a single-family unit with a separate basement unit and a basement walkout. The building permit was issued and the work was inspected on a regular basis by the building inspector during construction. There was no trees removed. There was no damage during construction. The only major change that was done is demolition of existing garage, which is perfectly legal and according to the city inspector, did not require change to the building permit issued. Later on, the rear gravel pad was enlarged by a few feet, but we'll pull it back. And the front balcony was added. Inside home, after the building permit was complete, my client, Mr. Ahmed, did split the building into several units and rented them out. He misinterpreted the information that was widely discussed in the media that the density of the housing areas around Toronto where the public transportation was very easily accessible would be increasing in the future. And also important to remember that his house is located not really in the typical location of DUNCOMBE Boulevard, but at the very beginning. And on the other side of the street, there is zoning that permits multiple units. So yes, he did make a mistake, big mistake, but he is willing to fix it. He has not rented it out to a multiple tenant for almost a year, and he intends to convert it back to a single-family dwelling with a separate basement unit. He has signed a letter that he will only rent it out as a single-family dwelling. And he will also rent out the basement unit as a separate unit, as it was originally permitted in his building permit. Now to the variances. There's really two parts to the variance. One dealing with a balcony, which is variance 1 and 2, and one dealing with a height, which is number 3. I'll start with the height. The height variance is very minor. It is really only 22 centimeters, which is 8.5 inches. Mistake was made during construction. There was a mistake in calculating average grade, and the building went slightly over the limit. But in reality, if, for example, he was building a pitched roof, he would be permitted to go much higher. And also, he is also allowed to build a parapet, which he didn't actually use. He didn't have a parapet. If he actually built a parapet, he would be actually at 7.5, where right now he's at 742. So I believe that variance is extremely minor, and I think he would be, as I said, it's very possible that if he's not permitted that, he would be building a parapet, and the building would end up being taller anyways. And also 22 centimeters, I don't think you would even notice that from the street. It's 8.5 inches, and there's quite a big distance from the street to the building. A second part of the variance deals with a balcony and over the front porch, which triggers the two variances. One is a setback, and one is the size of the balcony. The owner did not realize that such a large balcony was not permitted, but if it is removed now, it's really not going to change the situation a great deal, because all he really has to do is just remove the guards and change the door to the window, and the rest of the building will stay the same. What he's proposing to do instead is improve the look of a balcony to add glass railing and metal frame and glass railings, and finish the existing columns to make them look more finished and much better. Removal of a balcony, as I said, would not really solve anything. The look of a house really would remain the same. So I would really ask the committee to consider trying to improve the look rather than remove it completely. The owner is allowed to have a big roof over the porch, so that would really become, after he removed the railing, that's what really would become of a balcony. It would still remain there, but it would just be acting as a roof for the long porch at the front of the house, and the rest of the things that columns there were not really flagged by the zoning reviewer, so I expect that those things can stay. So the only thing that was really flagged are the size of a balcony and the setback that was triggered by the balcony. So again, I'd like to add that, mistake was made and, misinterpretation of the discussion that was going on in the city was made. There was a lot of discussion, as you probably know, about the intensification of certain transportation hubs and increasing the density of those and permitting multiple units. And this building is very close in that situation. So my client assumed that this would be happening to his house too in the very near future. So he kind of jumped ahead and tried to build with that in mind.
Okay, thank you. So just your time's up, so you may want to just close your remarks.
Well, as I said, big mistake was made. My client is willing to fix it. The first variance is very minor. That deals with a roof height. It's only 8.5 inches. And the other one is the balcony, which would not change if it was really not allowed. So, yes.
Okay, thank you very much for your submission. Members of the committee, any questions for Michael? I see none. All right. So, Michael, no questions at this time. Let's move on to speaking with the neighbors who have registered with us today. So I'll just do a roll call quickly, but I will start with, Penelope Wild, Gary and Vanda Thorpe, Caroline Thompson, Sal Frigio, and Tanya Baksh. Please find your place, and so we'll come to you in a few moments. Penelope Wild, we'll start with you. She's not there? Okay. So staff has advised me that Penelope Wild has not signed in. We will move to our next speaker, Gary and Vanda Thorpe. Gary and Vanda Thorpe, are you with us?
I'm here. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. So Gary.
Okay, so may I go ahead?
Yes, you have 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to say good afternoon. My name is Gary Thorpe, and I've lived on Brindler Boulevard for the last 34 years. I'd like to thank you, Madam Chair, and the committee members for giving me the opportunity to discuss my concerns regarding 35 Duncombe. I would like to speak directly to the applicant's request for these 3 variants of local zoning bylaw. But first, I would like to paint a picture of the history of this property for the committee because it is very extensive. I find it very confusing that the applicant and now the architect is asking for 3 minor variants for the zoning bylaw for proposed additions, when in fact this has been built for well over a year. This was a 13 to 1400 square foot story bungalow that the applicant proceeded to put a 2nd story on and then add a substantial 2-story and 1-story rear additions, as well as adding a 2-story partially enclosed addition to the front of this home that they're now calling a balcony. They also removed the single attached garage, which then allowed them to pave the gravel driveway entirely through the driveway and paving most of the backyard as a parking pad as indicated on one of the plans. This property was listed for sale last year as a 7-unit income investment property and was tenanted, and the backyard was used as a parking lot adjacent to neighbors' backyards. The city required the tenants to be all removed, and now is again, this home is listed now as a single-family home that still shows 5 pictures of kitchens on the real estate listing. If the interior is to remain the same and the garage not added to the back on, it will revert back to a multi-unit dwelling with a parking lot in the garage, in the backyard. I would now like to speak directly to the applicant's request for 3 variants from the zoning bylaw, and I strongly object to all 3. Regarding the minimum setback from the front lot line, it extends way beyond the adjoining 1-story bungalow on both the north side and the south side, completely out of character with the neighborhood. Regarding the height, this This building now towers over the adjoining single-story bungalow on the north side, single-story bungalow on the south side, as well as the single-story bungalow that backs onto on Brindler Boulevard, and has removed any semblance of privacy from these neighboring yards. The last regarding the area of the front addition, this is a massive two-story, partially enclosed structure that the applicant is calling a balcony. This structure has a solid roof extending over the two levels, as well as low walls, which are calling railings right to the floor. Walls are enclosed on both ends of the balcony on the second floor. There's actual walls enclosing both ends of the balcony, and they have stuck windows in these ends, in the end walls. This area could easily become additional living space with only windows added over the front of the second floor railings. I don't know what the technical requirements are to be considered a balcony, but this is way beyond what most would consider a balcony to be. It is indeed covering a huge square footage of that is not permitted at the front of the lot and should be removed. It does indeed, contrary to what the architect said, make a huge difference. In conclusion, I would like the committee to reject all three of these applications for requests for variance to the local zoning bylaw. A site visit would certainly help confirm everything I've said, and I do not believe any of this. If the architect was in fact from the beginning, I do not believe any of this was actually a slight mistake. It was done intentionally in many stages and was challenged by our councillor, Paul Ainsley, many times through this whole process. So it's not something that somebody mistakenly did or is naive from doing. If the architect thinks it's correct, it's totally out of character with the entire, and is a massive, massive intrusion on the neighbors' properties as well as the whole neighborhood. Totally out of character with the entire neighborhood, especially this balcony, which they're claiming they want to keep. It is a massive structure that is extremely deep, 6, 7.
Gary, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but your time's up, so you may want to close your remarks, please.
Okay, well, I would just like to thank the committee for allowing me to speak to them, and I wish for them to reject all three of these variants, but I really appreciate being able to speak.
Of course. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. Members of the committee, any questions for Gary? I see none. All right, thank you. We are going to our next speaker, Caroline Thompson. Caroline, is with us?
Hi. So exactly the same as what Gary is saying. I live at 61 Brindler Boulevard. This was a total disregard for the law. And I'd like to address, first of all, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes? Okay. It's an old age home. A Japanese old age home is right across the street from this house. It is not any apartment buildings. There's only single family homes in the area. There are no apartment buildings. That is a Japanese old age home that is right across the street from this structure. What a total disregard for the law that this owner has done. He removed trees, grass, the garage was removed. He paved he paid all without permits. He made his single driveway into a triple driveway. He paved all the way into the back, removed all the grass. He put gravel down. I have sent pictures. There are commercial trucks parked there day and night. He rented it out as 7 people were renting that house. The noise, the construction, the amount of cars being parked there. The veranda, again, as Gary had said, can easily be rented out as another structure. It is a permanent roof on the top. It has windows at the side. It is massive. It goes without regard for the neighborhood. There's nothing like this in the neighborhood. It's all single family homes. They took the single family home, the owner, and he's bought the house beside it as well, just to let you guys know. And during the pandemic, did this all quietly. No one did any inspections, as the architect or the owner pointed out. Nobody did. We were all calling in. We were asking the city, and we got nasty emails back to say, oh, well, you know, why are you only bothering us? From the city inspectors, you can check our emails and we'll send them all to you. And absolutely nobody went there to check. There are 7 meters for electricity. There's 7 meters for hydro. Okay, all of this is on that property. It is listed as a 5,000 square foot property on the real estate listings, which I included in my email.
I'm so
5,000.
sorry, Caroline.
Our homes are 1,500.
Caroline.
I oppose all. Okay, yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. I really appreciate this background. This is very important, but I think given the time that you have, if you can just focus on the variances.
The 3, yes. Okay, I oppose all 3. Number 1, this it's not set back 2 meters more. What it is not. This is not a minor variance. This is a major variance. It should be rejected. So that's bylaw 569-2013. That's a major variance. It's not minor and should be rejected. The second variance, the building height, absolutely no way. Then this building keeps going up for sale after it was constructed like that. Then the next owner is going to go, oh, if that was approved, then we're going to up the next unit as 2-3 more units up higher than that. And before you know it, we've got apartment buildings sitting in our single residential housing development here. No, absolutely, that should be rejected. And it should be made to be lowered, the ceiling height. And the balcony, absolutely not. That needs to be taken down. In fact, the whole structure needs to be taken down for what this man did. He needs to demolish the building and put the garage back up, and he needs to restore the house to a single family house. That is rejected. That's a major variance, what he did with that balcony. That's another room, which then he can rent out for more money. Somebody needs to come from the city and inspect this property, because the residents are furious over it. And there's a lot of residents there that are older and have been there, you know, they're 80, 90. They cannot navigate, email or anything like this. Gary and I are speaking on their behalf. I've got like 10 other residents on my street that have asked me, Caroline, do something about this. And the same thing to Gary. The noise coming from this house, the city has left us high and dry with no inspector to do anything about it. You complain and it's, oh, well, say it to somebody else. Please get out there and inspect this. And please tell this owner, demolish the property, put it back to a single family home. This is ridiculous.
Okay.
Thank you.
Caroline, thank you
I
very
reject
much.
everything.
Okay, understood. We have certainly listened to your concerns. Matters related to inspections, I'm sure the city staff have heard, and if they have to do anything, they'll do about it. But we heard your concerns with the variances itself, and you certainly have concerns with all of them, and you're proposing that they be rejected. Members of the committee, any questions for Caroline? I see none. All right.
Did you see my pictures that I sent in? Did everybody see?
They were on the agenda. Sorry? Okay. Yeah, so whatever has been sent on the agenda has been seen by all the committee members. Can we go to our next participant, Sal Frigio? Not? Okay. So Sal Frigio, who had registered to speak, has not logged in. I will move on to Tanya Baksh. Tanya, you're with us?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Tanya Baksh, and I live at 214 Oak Ridge Drive. I'm a member of the Cliffcrest Scarborough Village Southwest Residents Association Planning and Development Committee. We are an incorporated residents association which is registered and recognized by the City of Toronto. The Residents Association is working to preserve the unique nature of our neighborhoods and does not support the minor variance application being heard today for the dwelling located at 35 Duncombe Boulevard. Can you please pull up page 4, attachment number 2 in the RA letter of objection?
Okay, just give us a moment and we will pull it up.
I'll continue speaking while we wait to get that pulled up. I'm going to refer to it a couple of times in my presentation. We are supportive of development that respects the existing characteristics of our neighborhood, but strenuously oppose overdevelopment which removes the healthy tree canopy, reduces privacy, and does not respect the built form of existing homes. We believe this proposal does not meet the intent and the purpose of Toronto's official plan 4.1.5. We, the Residents Association, along with the 21 neighbors that submitted their letters of objection, including Councillor Ainsley, are in opposition of this minor variance application for the 3 variances being requested today, but I will focus on 2 of these variances. This variance application is being requested after the development has already been completed as outlined by the neighbors. This development has been a great concern over the years. Now the owners are claiming they made a lot of mistakes while building and misinterpreted some zoning bylaws. Variance number 1, the front yard setback. After the home has already been built, the owners are now requesting a front yard setback that encroaches by 1.78 meters into the front yard. This is not minor, and this is being requested after the fact and should not be approved by this committee. The owners should be made to tear down this development, rebuild while respecting and within the generous zoning guidelines. There have been some examples in the media in recent years of owners in Ontario being made to tear down developments built outside the approved plans and generous zoning guidelines. Variance number 3, the size of the balcony. Once again, the owners are requesting, after the fact, a balcony size of 36.3 meters squared. This is 9 times the allowed size of a second-story balcony. This is definitely not minor and not keeping in the character of the neighborhood. Our RA has noticed a trend with applicants to not give answers or vague answers to the question on the application form. Why is it not possible to comply with the zoning bylaws? In this case, the applicant's answer was building permit was modified without the owner knowing that the changes were built to do not comply to the zoning. We feel this does not answer the question as to why it does not comply. Now, they're claiming today that they made some mistakes along the build and there was a misinterpretation of the bylaws. Can you please pull up page 7, attachment number 5 of the RA letter? It is clear from the building permit inspection statuses that are publicly available online that the owners were not following the permitted plans as their inspections were not passed from the start of the development. The community believes that this house is already built, does not respect the prevailing heights, massing, scale, and density of houses in our neighborhood. In closing, we welcome and support positive development in our neighborhood, but the requested variances in this application are not minor, not within the prevailing character of the neighborhood, and are being requested after this development has already been completed. We request that the committee please refuse this minor variance application. Thank you for providing the opportunity to address you.
Thank you very much, Tanya. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for Tanya? I see none. All right, thank you. So we'll go back to Michael Bateman. Michael.
Yes.
Yes. So
yes, I'd like to.
Yeah. So you have 5 minutes. I hope you made some good notes of the concerns that were raised. And how would you respond to these concerns?
Well, a lot of concerns are kind of a lot of people seem to be very misinformed. This lot is very large. That is why the building is permitted to be quite large, a lot larger than other buildings that are next to it, which are on the smaller lots. And there's nothing really that was pointed out by the zoning examiner that is illegal about what was built, other than the 3 items that are listed in the variances. So even if those variances are not permitted, and I hope they are, especially the roof, because it's very difficult to take down 8 inches of a roof. And I don't think it's going to make any difference to anybody in the neighborhood if it is. And after the 8 inches are taken down, we can build a parapet and make it even higher legally. So it's going to be even worse. So again, the balcony is also the same situation. The platform does not need to be removed because it can function as the roof over the front porch. There's nothing prohibiting that in the zoning bylaw. So it basically would remain the same. The railings would be removed, the door would be closed, the window, but in general, the look of the house would change very little. what we're proposing is basically to improve the existing look and to add, to add some character to the building and hopefully improve it by a lot. But I was not in this project from beginning. I stepped in after a lot of complaints came out, and it was required for us to go to a committee of adjustment. So I can't really speak exactly to what was happening before, but I know that no trees were removed. I know that for a fact because I've checked the maps. I've seen there's no trees removed. I know the platform was made a little bit wider, but I think it's a great exaggeration to say that the entire lot was used as a platform. I took photos, and there are photos that were submitted that show that nearly 50% of the backyard was still green. It's a very big yard. That's why it seems like the platform was quite large. And as I said, we're pulling it back few feet to meet the 50% threshold, which is required by zoning bylaw. It is not true also that there's not a unique situation. There is not a multi-unit building right across the street. It's actually a very tall building. I think it's maybe 8 or 9 stories. Multi-unit building, and also there's several other zonings that are closer to the intersection of the DUNCOMBE and the I believe it's major. I'm not sure which street it is, but anyways, there's few different zonings very close to this property. So it's not like it is like in the middle of a street and kind of really destroys the whole neighborhood. It is in a visible place because there's definitely an intersection of 2 streets. And as I said, the building is set very far from a street. Pulling it down 8 inches is not going to change anything. Removing the balcony is not going to change anything. Possibly will make it look worse because you're just going to have a platform column sitting there. And so I hope that things are approved. And it's wrong to say that the building, yes, there's 7 meters right now, but and few kitchens, but the owner is planning to remove them all and comply with the zoning bylaw. So there will be only 1 kitchen on the main floor and 1 kitchen in the basement unit. So that's basically what is going to happen. And the building will be inspected, and a lot of people are aware of this now. So I don't think it's possible for the owner to not follow the law at this point. So he is planning to do that. As I said, only 3 variances, and I think a lot of people exaggerate and talk about things that are really fully compliant with the zoning and fully permitted by the zoning bylaw. So, that's basically what I have to address, but maybe there's some questions.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, the balcony on the 2nd story, which is being accessed from the 2nd story or above, it is a fairly large platform. Yes, different. It's how people view it is subjective. The permitted is 4 square meters. What is being proposed is 36.3. It's all across the frontage of the property, so it is fairly extensive. Okay.
I agree.
Right, and that's why you're here.
But it will not be removed. Yes, but it will not be removed because it'll stay as a roof.
Not yet.
It's permitted to be a roof.
Well, if the committee, should the committee deny this application, that balcony will have to be taken care of to meet the requirement. Okay, so do not assume that it will be. Yeah, so do not assume that it will not be removed.
But the platform itself meets all the zoning requirements, so the platform can stay as a roof.
What do you mean by a platform? What do you mean by a platform?
A platform, basically the roof that is covering the porch below on the ground floor. So that platform is not going to be removed because that's a roof. It's just going to act as a roof for the ground floor. The railings are going to be removed.
That is correct.
They didn't say anything about the roof.
Yeah. So what you're saying is the platform or the projection above the ground floor will remain. If you remove the railing, it does not constitute a balcony anymore. That's what you're saying, right? So that platform will remain there. Okay. But in terms of if you go by the zoning, the balcony with its current state is larger than what's permitted, right? So let's get that sorted out first.
I agree.
Yeah. And then can you tell me what happened with the front yard setback? Why wasn't it complied with what was approved?
It's basically complied with, but because of a balcony, it triggers because the
it's a balcony.
setback is measured from the balcony.
So,
So
but the
that's a
building
balcony
wall,
issue,
the
and
building wall itself complies with the 9 meters. It's the
complies,
projection.
yes, absolutely.
It's the projection that
It's
it doesn't
projection.
comply. Understood. Okay. All right. I just wanted to get that. And you suggested that there was no tree that was removed on the property?
No, I didn't. There was all the, I checked everything on a survey. There's no indication that any tree was removed. All the trees, all the photographs of all the trees were sent to the city. There's nothing on the survey that shows existing trees that are only along the edges of the property, and they're all still there.
Okay. All right. And you made a
So that was
comment.
previous situation. You can see
Yeah.
there was.
You made a comment earlier, although this is not the committee's jurisdiction, but you mentioned that the applicant will, or the owner will make some internal changes to remove the kitchens and whatnot. Would you need a building permit for
Yes,
that?
he's absolutely.
Would you?
Yes, we're gonna have to apply for a building permit after this for sure. It's we're going through a building permit to approve whatever committee allows us to keep, and then yeah, definitely remove all the existing kitchens, all the existing partitions that constitute and make it into a single family unit, and only rent it as such, and only the basement unit rented as a single unit.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much for that clarification. Okay, members of the committee, questions for the applicant or the owner who is also available? And maybe, if you have any questions for him directly, you can answer as well. Member Said, go ahead. And then Member Taylor after that. First, Member Said, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is to Mr. Michael. I have been there on the site of this property the other day. Yes, it's already a built-in property, and the platform is a huge, right? I hear you said again and again that nothing could be done at this stage. You cannot remove the huge balcony. But the thing is, I am not comfortable with this variance. Especially, it's not only huge. Even if I am the one taking that into consideration, the thing is, it's totally out of character of the street. Because if I drive the whole street, I saw there were single-story bungalows. All of them are having same architecture designs. They are blended into very quiet area with a lot of trees on that. So I will be saying that if removing this balcony may not be possible, but again, by changing the architecture, right? I don't know whether you can explore on that possibility as well, to change the architecture of this, especially the front. Could it be done at any stage? Because it's out of the character of the street, and it's looked like a huge intrusion into the privacy of the houses, even if they are on the front, across the street, or right or left. It's not within the fabric of the street. So that's my comments on that.
Can I respond to that, or should I wait for the next question?
Yes, you can respond to that. Yes.
Yes, we're willing to change the character of the balcony for sure. That's why the new drawing was proposed with metal railing and glass instead of the solid guard. And yes, I agree. It's probably not of a character, but actually, if you look around onto the other side, there's a big building right across the street. It is not like the rest of the street. It's a very unique situation. So if you spin around, there's a lot of these high-rise buildings, and one right across the street from this building. But in any case, yeah, as I said, I did not say that the balcony cannot be removed. The guards will be removed, but the platform will remain because it's a roof over the porch, over a porch on the ground floor, which is permitted, which was actually, if you see the survey, it was actually there even with the original house. There was a long veranda, long porch over the balcony, so over the ground porch. So it's not something new, some new element introduced. What was introduced is the balcony, the railings that were introduced, and the columns that support the roof above it. But again, as I said, the roof itself was not flagged, only the fact that the balcony was there. So I don't, as far as I know, the balcony, the other elements, other than the fact that it is a balcony, but once the railings are removed, it doesn't really function as a balcony anymore. So everything else remains. So I don't think taking that, not allowing that variance to go through is going to solve anything. It's actually probably going to make the situation worse. So that's why I'm agreeing and saying that we can improve the situation, and we're agreeing to follow exactly what is in the drawing and to make it definitely more transparent and more acceptable to the community.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that. Members of the committee, any more questions? Yes, Member Taylor, you had it, and then Member Macaulay after that. You'll go. Member Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess first of all, a comment on the compatibility of the building with the other houses on the street. Yes, it is not like the other houses on the street. However, it's the largest lot on the street, so it does accommodate a much larger house. And I think it's notable that this application does not require rear yard setbacks, side yard setbacks, very minimal height increase. So while it may not look like everything else on the street, I think there's a good reason. It's basically the size of the lot. The question I had was the agent just said the problematic platform won't act as a balcony because I thought he said he was going to put rails and glass panels instead of the solid sort of meter high walls that are shown in the photo. Is that correct?
Well, the drawing was submitted showing that, yes. We submitted a drawing showing what it's going to look like in the future. It was on the screen not long ago. Maybe it can be pulled out again. It shows that how it's going to look like.
Okay, I think you made a comment that when you change. Okay, there it is.
Yeah.
Why does that not still serve as a balcony?
No, I'm saying this would still serve as a balcony, but if we actually just remove the railing and leave the bottom canopy over the porch, it's actually serves as a roof over the porch, which is permitted, and which was actually an element in the previous building, which was originally a bungalow. They also have a long, you can see it on the survey, there was a long porch right in front of the entire house.
That is correct, but even with the change of material, it will continue to be a balcony.
Yes, but if the railings are removed, then it's actually just becomes a roof over which is actually was an original element in the original house too. So, and even if it was not, it's permitted still.
Then you're introducing, in my mind, a very serious safety problem. You've got door access to this roof without rails.
Yes,
people that live there are going to assume it's legal. Somebody's going to have a few too many drinks and end up on the street.
Well, that's why we're closing the window and changing it. We're closing the door and changing it to the window.
Okay, I don't see that information. Where's that information?
This is just a proposal of how we can improve the balcony. But if it actually was removed,
well, I'm looking at a door. Are you telling me that door doesn't exist in the plans
it
anymore?
exists right now, but if a balcony is not allowed, then we will actually just change it to a window. So it's not going to be a door. That door, either it's going to be closed completely or it's going to be changed into a window. There's not going to be a door if it's not allowed. So that's what was the change. But I don't think it's going to make a significant change to the entire design if that door is removed or it's changed into the window. It's still going to be basically the same design, except there's going to be no railing and no door.
Yes, you're correct. I guess, though, my major concern was, it's a 400 square foot balcony, which is larger than my living room. I've had 50 people in my living room. I don't think it's a good idea to have gatherings of 40 or 50 people in a neighborhood. There's a reason we have 4 square meter balconies. It's to allow 2 people at a small table to have a cup of coffee.
Yes.
So, yes, it doesn't affect the design, but the functionality of it is a problem. I guess I'd be much happier not having it function as a balcony with removing that door and removing the railings.
But even if it was a 4 meter, which is permitted, 4 meter balcony, you can still have quite a few loud people standing there. So it's going to be single family.
No, you can't. No, you can't. It's 4 square meters, holds a small round table and 2 chairs. That's it. It's 6 feet square. You can't, it's just, no.
Yeah, this is
We've
approximately.
dealt with these things before. We understand what's possible on a 4 square meter balcony, and it's
Yeah.
2 people and a small table. Anyway, I don't have any more questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Taylor. I think you raised some very good points here. This is a very large balcony in that neighborhood. Okay, any more comments? Member McCauley. Member McCauley, you're muted.
Thank you.
You're muted again.
I had answered. Can you hear?
I can hear you now.
Good, thank you. Okay, I think my question has been answered. In the plans that the staff are showing, this originally was a bungalow. And my question is the bungalow still underneath the second floor, and was the bungalow extended to create this very large building?
Yes, it was extended, but as I said, it meets all the zoning requirements and it doesn't require any variances. So it was legally extended, and there was a permit issued to extend it, and everything was approved.
Okay. And is there any requirement, or when you took any of these things through the building department, for grass or landscaping in the rear yard?
There's definitely a requirement, 50% requirement, and we're going to meet that by pulling down the platform a little bit. The yard is very large, so it's not that difficult to meet the 50% requirement because of that big triangle, which actually allows you to build quite a big platform in the back. But as I said, we're going to meet all the requirements. And
I'm talking about grass on the natural grass, natural landscaping in the rear yard.
in the rear, well, there is
Yeah,
already.
where you've got that parking lot and the trucks parked in the.
That's going to be pulled back and it's going to be reduced in size to meet the zoning requirements. And there's already quite a lot of landscaping on the lot, existing landscaping. So I don't know if there's no really zoning requirement to add any more landscaping, and I don't think it's going to necessarily affect the neighborhood. But the platform will get reduced and it will be smaller to meet the zoning requirement. But I think it only has to be pulled by maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 feet, something like that, to meet the 50% threshold.
Okay. Any variances dealing with your rear yard?
No, nothing.
There's no.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's no variance there. It's just the height of the building and 2 variances associated with the balcony or the platform. One is the setback and one is the size.
I'm talking about the entire property.
There's nothing here.
I see that we don't have any variances, but I'm not sure that you can pave the entire rear yard in a single family zone.
It is not paved. There's gravel, and we're going to reduce it in size to meet the zoning requirement of 50% landscaping, soft landscaping, which is what the zoning permits.
Okay.
But we don't have that as a variance today, so we don't know the specifics of that.
It's not a variance.
Yeah. Okay, so on that note, I think we've had some good discussion on this. Any closing remarks, Michael?
Basically that you also keep in mind that this building is quite far away from the street. A lot of the other buildings are much closer, so they have a bigger impact. And I hope we can separate the 3 variances because the height issue is very, very minor. And in fact, the owner is permitted to build it a lot higher if he actually built a parapet or if he built a pitched roof, which would make this building even more gigantic. So actually, I think
we understand that, but because it's a flat roof, that's what the height requirement is. We understand that. With a pitched roof, he could go higher, and that's fine. That's within the zoning bylaw permission.
Also, parapet is allowed.
Yeah.
Also, Also, parapet is allowed, so it can be higher, but we don't have a parapet, so that's why we actually permitted to go higher with a flat roof, really, in reality, in terms of looks, because 30 centimeter parapet is permitted.
Okay. So before we take the matter into committee, I want to ask you a question. We heard the residents, we heard the concerns, and I think amongst the committee members, there's a bit of a concern related to the balcony itself. Is there an opportunity to remove the balcony or make one in accordance with the zoning bylaw, which is 4 square meters?
Not really. I mean, if you don't allow the balcony, we're just going to take down the railings. We're going to close the door, change it into the window, and basically the rest of it is going to stay the same because the canopy over the porch, ground floor porch, is permitted, and nothing else was flagged by the. So that's basically what would be. I think would not be an improvement.
All right, okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to check with you before we went into committee. All right, so we now go into committee, and committee members, any thoughts, any comments? I'm going to give my opinion. I think the balcony is extensive. It is too large. It's 400 square feet. That is ginormous, in my opinion, at the front of the house. So I have concerns with the size of the balcony. And of course, as it relates to the setback as well. I mean, setback, I'm not so much concerned. The building is located at a setback, but again, the 2 and 2 go together. You can't separate one from the other. Because of the size and the design of the platform, it's resulting into the setback. So one goes, the other has to go. So I have concerns with those variances related to the platform or the balcony. With respect to the height, I'm not so much concerned about that one. I'm looking, what are your thoughts, committee members? Member McKay?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm generally along the line of thinking as you. I don't think that I would refuse variance 1 and 3, having heard all of the discussion. So that would leave the height permission to be varied. But otherwise, yeah, the balcony structure is affecting. Well, first of all, it's such a big area, and then secondly, it also is a factor in terms of the building setback. So that's my thinking. Could not support 1 and 3.
Could I say something?
No, sorry, Mike. We are in committee, so we can't go back to you. Okay. Sorry about that.
You made a mistake, so anyways.
That's okay. That's okay. We've heard you. Member Taylor and then Member McCauley.
Yeah, I guess I'm in general agreement with what's been said so far, except I'm not as troubled with variance 1 as I am with variance 3. So my inclination would be to approve variances 1 and 2 and refuse variance 3.
So Member Taylor, variance 1 is a result of variance number 3.
Yes, I realize that.
Right. So if we,
I think that removing the functionality of the balcony is my major concern.
Okay.
Yeah, I know the building is still going to be 1.78 meters closer to the street than the bylaw allows, but I'm not as troubled by that as the functionality of the extremely large balcony. That's my major problem.
Okay. All right, Member McCauley.
Thank you. I'm looking at this and looking at what as a variance, at the test that we are asked to look at. Does this maintain the purpose and intent of the official plan? The intent of the official plan is residential. This is still residential. Does it fit into the character of the area? No, it is clearly different from the character of the area. It is not even a 2-story house, which is what a number of houses that we have seen come through for Committee of Adjustment. This is a different format. You're almost looking at this as a 2-story apartment building with a 3rd floor in the basement. The size of the building doesn't require a variance. The front porch deck certainly does. And it is out of keeping with the intent, again, of the zoning bylaw to allow a small patio canopy on your second floor. So I don't think this application maintains the purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw. I don't think it's appropriate for the development of the area. And I don't think the application where we're going from 4 square meters to 36 square meters can be considered minor.
Okay, thank you very much, Member Macaulay. I would also say that I think you referred to it as character, but the second test is the proposal desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land? In my opinion, it is not desirable, and hence it fails the tests. One test fails, the application fails. Member Said.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to echo my thoughts that I am also supporting my colleagues in that. I mean, while standing in front of the property, everybody can make a very easy judgment. This development was out of character of the street. We try to explore on the possibilities with the applicant if they can look for the changes in the size, because focusing on the variance number 3, I cannot be supportive of that in its current size and current designing. Also, if the applicant say they are simply going to remove the railings from there and the entire structure will be the same, again, I will say it's not matching. It's not matching with the street landscape. So again, it's going to be a difficult.
But it's not triggering any variance. If they remove the balcony, then the platform and the porch below is not triggering any variance. Okay, so yes, definitely the character is important, but it's not triggering any variance if the balcony is removed.
Absolutely right. Absolutely
Okay.
right. Yeah.
So
that was a very connecting point to that.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Thank you.
All right. So on that note, I think we had a good discussion on this. Can I have a motion now at this point? Member Said, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In view of the discussions the committee members have, I move the motion for refusal of this application.
In its entirety?
In its entirety, because even if we don't approve a variance number 3, it's going to affect the variance number 1.
You still have the opportunity. So if you can separate the height from the balcony. So variance 1 and 3 are related to the balcony, and variance number 2 is on its own for the height of the building.
So I can move a motion for partial approval of the application, whereas variance number 1 and variance number 3 are not approved.
Okay, so you have a motion on the floor to refuse variance 1 and 3. Okay, and approve number 2. Okay. Seconder, Member Macaulay?
No, I'm not going to second it. I would suggest that we want to consider whether variance 2 should be approved.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm sorry, Member Macaulay. I have to interrupt you. We have a motion on the floor right now. We are not deliberating. I only intervened just for clarity on the motion. So the motion is on the floor. I'm looking for a seconder to the motion. Member Gary, please go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair. I second Member Said's motion so that 1 and 3 would not be approved.
Through the chair, just a point of clarification, there are urban forestry. There's an urban forestry condition as well.
So there's an urban forestry condition as well. Okay. So Member Said, can you redo your motion, please, once again?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the motion for refusal of variance number 1 and refusal of variance number 3, subject to the condition of urban forestry condition number 2.
And approve number 2.
Through the chair, approve approve variance number 2 subject to urban forestry conditions. You can't impose a condition on a refusal, just as a point of clarification.
So you refuse 1 and 3, approve 2, subject to urban forestry condition.
I take that as my motion.
Okay, all right. Seconder, Member Gary?
Yes, Madam Chair. I second that motion as clarified, yes.
And all in favor of this motion? And all opposed? Okay, Member Taylor opposes the motion, and the motion is carried and application has been partially approved. Okay, thank you. We now move to our next item that was held for discussion, and this is item number 23. Item 23 is 40 Huntingwood Drive. There are registered speakers. I will just do a name call.
Through the chair, you may wish to deal with items 23 and 24 together,
Ah, I see.
since it's the same applicant and the same speakers. I believe so.
Yes, everything's the same. The addresses are different, but they could be done together.
That is correct.
Okay, so we're dealing with item 23 and 24 together. 42 Huntingwood Drive and 95 FAIRGLEN Drive. Registered members are Robert Lopez, Christine Kisher, Carmelo and Fortunato Zavaglia, and Cosme Miranda. Please find your place. We will be coming to you shortly. I'll start with the agent, Janice Robinson. Janice.
Hi, Madam Chairman. Janice Robinson here.
All right, thank you, Janice.
Hello, Janice Robinson. Okay.
Yeah, just there was a little delay there. So we have you. We can hear you. Thank you. Janice, you have 5 minutes. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Yes, hopefully I'll get a little bit more time with doing all 4 at the same time. Madam Chairman, members of committee, this is a proposal for consent to sever 2 lots into 4 lots, each having frontages of 12.56 meters and areas of 462 square meters. There's variances for lot frontage area, dwelling coverage, FSI height, and variances for front yard setback and front porch encroachment. The proposed dwellings are detached dwellings with conventional floor plans, with the main floor rooms at the same level as the garages, as opposed to raised up a half level. These lots all front onto Huntingwood, a major street where policies for neighborhoods in the official plan permit more intensive development. There's already a mix of land uses fronting on Huntingwood, including lots with similar frontage to what's proposed, fronting on Huntingwood, and townhouses on the south side of Huntingwood at Drive at 15 Huntingwood to the west of FAIRGLEN Avenue. I advised committee that planning staff initially asked for the proposal on the 2 properties of 40 Huntingwood and 95 FAIRGLEN to be townhouses. That was not a proposal that the owners wanted to do, so detached dwellings are proposed. The planning staff email on file on the application information, you have that before you, states that planning staff have no concerns about the proposal, including in reference to the variances sought. So the alternative to this proposal is a rezoning for townhouses. That is not what this owner wants to do. Transportation Services also has no objections to the proposal. The dwelling on the corner of FAIRGLEN and Huntingwood was revised to satisfy Transportation Services by moving it. Originally, the driveway fronted on Huntingwood. Now there's a detached garage at the back. That was at the request of Engineering Services. Or Transportation Services. We agree with the conditions imposed or recommended by Engineering Services. Urban Forestry also has conditions which we agree with. There was also a change to the dwelling on the corner for that dwelling to preserve some trees, the city trees along the frontage. So I've reviewed the letters of objection from neighbors on FAIRGLEN Avenue and note that these homes front onto Huntingwood, so it's different. We also have 7 letters of support for this proposal, 3 from owners on FAIRGLEN Avenue, 1 on Huntingwood, and 3 on Leafield Drive, which is to the west of FAIRGLEN Avenue. The proposed lots and dwellings will be in keeping with the lot fabric and the overall character of the neighborhood. More specifically, the lots and dwellings will fit in with the character of the street they front on, which is Huntingwood Drive. I also note that the proposed lots, they're wider than the lots that were proposed recently at 99 FAIRGLEN Avenue. There was, maybe it was the last agenda. Those lots were 10.05 meters in frontage. These proposed lots before you today are 12.56 meters. And of course, they don't front on FAIRGLEN Avenue. There are lots in the neighborhood with similar frontages and narrower frontages on Beamsville Drive, on Huntingwood, and on Leafield Drive. There are a number of lots on the west side of Leafield Drive that don't necessarily show up on the map that you have, but they were approved on appeal at tribunal. So I submit to the committee that this proposal meets the general intent and purpose of the official plan. There will be no impact on neighbors as a result of these new lots. The neighbors who are speaking, as I understand, live on FAIRGLEN, up the street from this. There are no additional driveways on FAIRGLEN as a result of this. One driveway exists now. There will be one when this development gets built. The requested variances will permit appropriately sized lots and permit dwellings that will be desirable for the neighborhood, adding to the existing housing stock in the neighborhood. The proposal is for appropriately sized dwellings on what I consider to be underutilized lots. So it's my submission that the proposal meets the 4 tests for minor variances. I also note that the consents meet the criteria for consent under the Planning Act. And finally, this is a very modest intensification on what is classified as a major street that would be consistent with the PPS and in conformity with the growth plan. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Janice. You wrapped up in exactly 5 minutes, so that's great. I'm sure we will have more discussion with you through our comments. So, members of the committee, do you have any questions for Janice? Okay, Member Said, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Janice, in both the applications you are creating, let's take the first one, 23, item number 2340, Huntingtonwood Drive. So subsequently, the lots which are being created, their frontage has been reduced like 50% as required, right? 12 meter, whereas the requirement is 24 meter. Do you have a lot study available with you? What about the neighbor, the lot size, the frontage, I mean, in the other lots?
Lots in this neighborhood are not 24 meters. If you're looking at the map that shows the neighborhood, if you look at the, for instance, the northeast corner of Leafield Drive and Huntingwood, which is the same kind of location as 95 FAIRGLEN, those 2 lots have been severed. If you look at the frontage of the lot on the southeast corner of FAIRGLEN and Huntingwood, that's a narrow lot as well. Those lots, and all the way down Beamsville Drive, this whole area is subject to a 24-meter lot frontage, but that's what it says in the bylaw. That's not what the existing lot fabric is.
Is that good for you, Member Said?
I'm good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I don't see any other hand up, so we can go to our residents now.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Sorry, go ahead.
Can I just ask, what's the name of the street mid-block between Fairley and Pharmacy? FAIRGLEN and Pharmacy. North-South Street.
Beamsville Drive.
Leafield.
That's on the south side.
Yeah, what's it called on the north side?
On the north side?
The map I'm looking at doesn't have a name. Anyway, the name doesn't matter. My question is really, do you know what?
I believe it's Sesame Street on the north side.
It is Sesame Street. Yes.
Okay. My question is, do you know when when that subdivision was approved? Because the lot sizes are very similar to what you're proposing.
So that was probably when this whole area was developed, and that street has a narrower lot fabric than the interior going up FAIRGLEN. You can see those lots are much smaller on the street you're talking about. But those are all vintage houses. They're not a bunch of lots that have been severed recently. The recent severance activity was over on Leafield Drive.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. We'll go to our residents now. The first resident who has registered to speak with us is Robert Lopez. Robert, are you with us?
Oh. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, my name is Robert Lopez. I'm here with Christine Kisher. We are residence owners at 112 FAIRGLEN, which is just half a block up from this proposed development. This is the street where my partner has grown up in and lived her whole life, and so she knows the neighborhood very well. The proposed severing of these lots is something that almost all of the neighbors on our street oppose, even if they haven't, if they don't have the tech savvy to log in and go through the whole procedure of objecting. We've spoken to many of them, and the great majority of them oppose this. The same thing happened earlier in May, I believe, when an application came through for severing 99 FAIRGLEN Avenue. And because of all the same concerns, that application was rejected. The proposed changes are not in any way minor. They are major changes to the neighborhood, to the street, and the proposed homes are totally out of character with both homes on FAIRGLEN and on Huntingwood, because although there are a few lots that are smaller, most of them are all larger, and that is one of the reasons that developers are attracted to this neighborhood. The townhomes that are at the south east corner of Huntingwood and Victoria Park, those townhomes do not front on Huntingwood. They have their own drive and are built in such a way that the backyards are on Huntingwood, and they are no obstruction at all to the neighborhood. I have several concerns about the proposal, because not only is it out of place and would change the neighborhood significantly, as we have seen these kinds of changes on nearby street, mainly in Leafield. It causes many undesirable effects, and we have spoken to people who live on Leafield and who are long-term residents of that street, and they are not happy with those either. So I propose that this, I argue that this proposal does not fit the City of Toronto official plan in keeping the neighborhood and character of this neighborhood, which is, I would describe it as a parkland. When you look out your window, you see a lot of trees, you see single-family homes that are well manicured with beautiful front gardens. And especially now in these days of working from home, it is nice to look out your front window and observe these beautiful gardens. This is something that is going to be taken away by this proposal, because most of that lot area will be taken up not only by building, but also driveways. And I know that they have changed their plan to say that it will not affect FAIRGLEN because it's fronting on Huntingwood. It still does. All these homes are much too close together and larger than the homes already on this street. It affects the way the way that the street looks and the way it functions. All the added driveways, especially at this corner, are a danger, in my opinion, because I have used this bike path many times and had many close calls because of the traffic and the driveways that come out onto it and the bus routes. It is not a friendly intersection for not only foot traffic, which is used by all the neighborhood kids, because this street only has one sidewalk on the east side. And all the neighborhood kids use this street because it's a quiet street on their route to the schools at the other end of FAIRGLEN. The addition of 2 more homes effectively doubles the density of the area.
Robert,
so you're
sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you may want to start wrapping up your comments. Your time's done.
Sure. So the doubling of this density is going to affect not only the quality of life, but also will set a precedent for this beautiful street that is not like any other streets. And we are trying to keep it the way it is to avoid the problems that other streets have experienced. So adding these, severing these lots will have a very deep impact on our way of life and the way we live on our street.
Okay, thank you, Robert, for letting us know of your concerns and your opinion. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for Robert? I see none. Okay, thank you very much.
Get going, baby. That was wonderful.
We'll move to our next speaker, Carmelo and Fortunato Zavaglia.
It's Carmela Zavaglia calling in, and I live at 111 FAIRGLEN Avenue. I agree with what my neighbor at 112 has just said, even though I have never met the man. I hope to one day. Okay, so the reason I am actually not as concerned about 40 Huntingwood, it doesn't really concern me, but the 99 FAIRGLEN one certainly does. Now, we went through this I think it was in April or May, with 95 FAIRGLEN. It seems that all these investors want our huge lots to severance, make money, while we all bought on this street for the integrity and the character of the street, the big lots, the treed lots. And all these investors want to do is come in and sever them and, make their money and leave. They have no intention of living there. So, and I don't think it's going to be safe either, the way that 99 FAIRGLEN is, the way those 2 houses are, for exactly the same reason that Mr. Lopez said. And, so first of all, so I'm worried about our street and the out of character. There are some big, beautiful homes going up in our street. We're all following the rules because we love the lot size, and it's a quiet area. So from Huntingwood to Altair, I want to keep the integrity of the large lots, only because it's so rare to find in Toronto. And anyway, so, and then, it's a desirable street right now, and it's valuable, and our taxes are like humongous, and we would like to keep it the way it is. So I'm objecting to it. And then when I went on and looked at the plans, it seemed like everything was already done. Like, do we even have a shot here? Like, the buildings are all practically built. Everyone's saying, okay, the forestry. I saw some of the names that approved all this, and they're like relatives of the people that own the lots. I recognize their names. So I'm not sure everything is, I don't even think I'm not sure I even have a chance. But I did notice some variances that they want to go, like they want to go a little bit higher than what's allowed. Now, why do they want to do that? We all kept within our heights. I think they should too. Do they want to build, like, I know they're saying it's a detached home, But who knows? Maybe they're going to put a triplex in. They say that now, but who knows? So why are they making them taller? Why do they need the extra space? And at the frontage, we all have our homes so far back. These are all going to be so close to the street. Well, not so close, but enough that they have to apply for a variance. Anyway, these are the reasons that I'm objecting to 99 FAIRGLEN severing the lot. I would like to keep the integrity of our street, which I love. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, thank you, Carmelia, for taking the time to speak with us. We heard your comments. Just want to check with the committee members if they have any questions for you. I see none. All right. So committee, your comments regarding 95 FAIRGLEN have been heard, and we're going to receive a response from the applicant after this. Next neighbor who has registered, Cosme Miranda. All right, Cosme, you're with us.
I live at 73 FAIRGLEN Avenue, opposite 40 Huntingwood. I love this neighborhood very much, and I think changing or building these homes would totally change the character of this neighborhood. I'm a proud resident of this area. I've been living here for now 25 years, and I've seen a lot of changes that the city doesn't even care of these streets. My also concern is the fact that if we allow these variances to take place, where does it stop? It will continue. I bought this home because I felt it was a beautiful neighborhood. And now to allow this to go on without any objection and let these guys who have the money to build and profit over this beautiful neighborhood, I think is totally wrong. I fully agree with with the former neighbors. I believe they're my neighbors, especially with Robert Lopez. And my also other concern is the fact that the traffic is very heavy on Huntingwood. When there is an accident on 401 east of Victoria Park, the traffic for some reason is bogged down on Huntingwood. And to me, I wouldn't mind if Huntingwood someday changed to one-way street. But the way it is right now, I think for the safety of the children, that there's 2 schools in the neighborhood, and they use this crosswalk, which I see so dangerous that people don't even want to stop. I've seen close accidents. So I don't think I'm in agreement to changing the character of this neighborhood. And I let that. Thanks for listening to me.
Okay, no, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. So generally speaking, you have concerns with both the applications in its entirety, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure because we're dealing with both the applications together. Before it slips my mind, Carmelia, I wanted to mention to you, you raised a point about how when you look at the drawings and the drawings are done and they have some sort of approval. No, they do not have any approval at this time. The drawings are prepared by professionals, and hence you may see their stamps on, which is their license or their professional stamps, but none of these have been approved by the municipality, by the City of Toronto. This is the first step in the process. It's only been reviewed so far. They're going through this process. If this gets through, then they go to the next step, which is the building permit stage, for which they will have to prepare new drawings and submit to the building department. So none of this has been approved. All right, so I just wanted to make that clear. Let's go back to Janice Robinson. Janice?
Yes, hi.
Hi. So you heard the concerns. How would you like to respond? Do you have 5 minutes?
Yes, thank you. So, I heard a lot of things, mostly opposed to having a severance, that it's going to change the character of the neighborhood. But I think that there has to be a differentiation between Huntingwood Drive and something up the street on FAIRGLEN Avenue, which was the previous one. I heard people talking about undesirable effects, but I didn't really hear what those would be other than they're going to see a different house. I heard they're too close together. There's no side yard variances here, except for the one projection on FAIRGLEN Avenue for the porch. I heard comments about traffic and pedestrians, but transportation services, these plans were revised to satisfy transportation services, and they've said they have no objections now. So that's very important. This still will be a low-density area. These houses front on Huntingwood, and when you look along Huntingwood, the lot fabric, it fits. And yes, there's townhouses at 15 Huntingwood that back onto it, but it's townhouses there. And we have to remember, if we were doing what the planning staff wanted, it would be townhouses here. 12.56 meter lots on these properties are not out of character with the overall neighborhood, the overall lot fabric in this neighborhood. They talk about builders building these dwellings. Builders always build dwellings, and then families move into the homes. That's how it works. So I just think that these proposed lots and dwellings, I submit to committee that they conform with the official plan, meet the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, will be desirable for the development of the neighborhood, will be a benefit to the neighborhood, and meet the 4 tests.
Thank you very much,
And that
Janice.
concludes my comments.
Okay, thank you. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for Janice? Any clarification? Okay. Janice, you're aware of all the conditions from the various departments?
Yes.
Urban forestry, ECS, and road widening requirements and corner rounding, all that, all those requirements you're familiar with?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now we take the matter into committee. Thank you very much for your time, Janice. Member McCauley.
Thank you. One question to Janice. I've looked at the variances, and most of them I understand. The one variance that the residents have raised and probably is out of character with the area is your building height. You're asking for a 9.73 meters height, whereas the zoning bylaw requires 9. Would you consider reducing that? Or actually eliminating the variance for building height?
Yes, so, and I don't see the elevations in your package. Are they in there? And do you have the elevation drawings? The thing is, it's a very small portion of the pitch that ends up being over the 0.73. And if it's lowered, it ends up being a less desirable looking pitch to the roof. And I also note that most of the city of Toronto, it's 10 meters. So it's a pitched roof dwelling. It's just a small part that ends up being above that. And it's still below what most of the city is, 10 meters, and it's a small area. If it got reduced, it would just end up not looking as good. There's no third story in there. It's just a desirable looking pitch to the roof, and that's what the height ends up being with the grades that the lots are.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm in committee's hands, but at this point, I don't want to, not knowing what it would look like and thinking that it may not look as good, the dwellings, I'm reluctant to just say, sure, I'll drop that variance. I don't think it would be very desirable for the overall appearance, and I don't think it would make a difference on the end product and how it looks in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you, Janice. I did drive up and down the road, and I noticed that there's a number of big homes on FAIRGLEN. Some of those probably are more than the 9 meters in height. It was something that the residents had requested, and I thought I'll follow up on. But I'm satisfied with your answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member McCauley. Last call for questions before I take the matter into committee. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Let's proceed with our comments, deliberation, or a motion. Member Said.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, these are the comments and my observation. And thank you to the staff. They have been sharing the street view while we were discussing all this. And we were looking into the street character. while seeing the street view on the Google. So especially for the Huntingwood Drive, I will say I am not very much sure or to agree with the comment that there are lots of these size. I think majority of the lots on that road are much bigger what they are proposing after the severance over here. So in my opinion, the severance for both the application is going to create 2 lots or 4 lots, which are inappropriate in size in terms of their frontage. In Huntingwood Road, for example, if 12 meter is the required is 24 meter. And the same happens, 50% reduction in the lot area. So these lots are going to be very small. It's not meeting the character of especially the Huntingwood Drive. So I am not comfortable with that, even with the consent application. And once I show my reservation for the consent application, I will automatically say I am not supporting the minor variances subsequently with this application.
Yes, Member Macaulay.
Thank you. If Mr. Sayed is finished, I have some comments as well. As is typical with a consent application where I am concerned about what is happening, I do a really big drive. In this case, I drove across Huntingwood, and for those of us, Huntingwood extends from Victoria Park 3/4 across the municipality. It is a collector road, a minor arterial in City of Toronto's terminology, and it goes from Victoria Park all the way across almost to Markham Road. So it's a long collector road. In that road, I would say in a collector road, one would expect smaller lots than one would expect in the interior of the neighborhood. And so when I was at what is on FAIRGLEN and what was on Sesame Street, and there's another Lichfield, those 3 streets, yes, they have larger houses, larger lots, and changes in the area where there are very large lots being built. It's an older neighborhood, so what you do get is changes where people are tearing down the existing and building a 2-story. At the top end of this FAIRGLEN is a whole different range of houses. We're into semi-detached. So we've got an area that is somewhat stable, changing over from what was built in the 1970s and 80s to what is desirable for the 2020s and 2030s. And I think on Huntingwood Drive itself, there's a number of lots that probably could have some, I would call minor intensification. In other words, where there is 1 lot on a corner, there probably should be 2. This is really what I'm looking at what should be the character on a minor arterial. You don't want apartment buildings, but it's also not an area for the largest lots and the largest houses. And so, in my opinion, this consent application seems to fit what is desirable going forward.
Thank you, Member Macaulay. I agree with your comments as well. I think, if anywhere, the peripheries of these neighborhoods are ideal or more appropriate for modest intensification and gentle intensification, which, as you rightly pointed out, this is a minor collector. It connects a lot of local streets, and if anywhere, this is the appropriate location for modest intensification. And yes, change is inevitable. Change will happen over time. 12-meter lot frontage are still quite generous in terms of lot frontages. So I think from a standard perspective, in my opinion, it's minor in nature in terms of the reduction in lot frontages. That's my 2 cents on it. Is there any other comment? Okay, all right. On that very positive note, can I have a motion? Member Macaulay. When you are delivering your motion, Member Macaulay, just make sure you are referring to the separate applications for consent. And then, so you want to deal with 40 Huntington first, consent, associated minor variances, then FAIRGLEN, consent, and minor variance. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to sort of sum it up by saying, I think these 2 consent applications and the variances are appropriate. They provide for reasonable development in the area. They look forward to change, but that is what one would hope for in Toronto, with a desire for change, but not exasperated change. So I recommend approval for consent application B001221 for 40 Huntingwood Drive. And I believe in both cases, the consent applications require the same conditions. So I will put forth approval for consent application B1321 to C 95 FAIRGLEN Avenue. And those consent to the conditions and forestry conditions. I don't believe there are any other conditions for those 2 consent applications.
That is correct, yes. So we have a motion on the floor to approve the consent application for 95 FAIRGLEN Avenue, subject to conditions of urban forestry and ECS.
And for 40 Huntingwood.
And for 40 Huntingwood. So for both consents with the conditions. May I have a seconder, please? Member Taylor, please go ahead.
I'll second that motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And all in favor? And all oppose? Members say that opposes the application. However, the application carries. Now the associated minor variance applications for each of those 2 addresses. Member Macaulay, go ahead.
Okay, I was looking at the variances being requested. And again, they seem to be very minor. If you look at coverage, the existing coverage requirement is 40, they're asking for 42. The lot area is a difference because it's reflecting the change in the pattern of development in the area. The building height is minorly larger, but 0.73 of a meter. I'm not even sure how much that is in terms of inches, maybe 12 inches. The front yard setback, again, it fits with what one would expect on Huntingwood, and to achieve a still fairly large rear yard. So I recommend approval of the variances for Huntingwood Drive as A007421, 7621, and on FAIRGLEN, it's A7321 and A7521. So in actual fact, it becomes 74, 75, 73, 74, 75, and 76. Those are the variance numbers. I recommend approval. I think they are appropriate and allow for a change in development in keeping with the character of the area.
Thank you, Member Macaulay. May I have a seconder, please? Member Taylor, please go ahead.
I'll second the motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And all in favor of this motion? The motion, all opposed? Members say it opposes the motion. However, the application, motion's carried and the applications are approved. Thank you. Okay. We now go to our next item, which is item 27. And item 27 is 62 Allister Avenue. Can I please have the applicant Peter Jerusek? And until he comes up, just want to call out the names of the residents who have registered. John Spears and Janet May, please find your place. We'll come to you in a bit. So Peter Jerusek.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, committee.
Good afternoon, Peter. So would you like to make a presentation or go to the questions directly?
I'd like to make a short presentation if whoever's manning the computers could put up the site plan.
Sure. Eric, could you please put up the site plan?
And an item I'd like to note, I did do a verification, and variance number 7 is not required. So the platform one, number 7, which is platforms at or below the first story, that can be eliminated. I have verified that it's not a required variance.
Let's pull it up on the screen so that everyone can read it.
Yeah, it's the longest one there at the bottom. We are exempt if we're within 2.5 meters, and there was an error in the measurements regarding the how far out the deck is, because we did bring it back in and not make it as not projecting. It is within the 2.5 meters or less of the rear main wall, so that variance is eliminated.
Okay, so confirming that for this application, item 27, variance 7 is being withdrawn by the applicant. Okay, thank you very much.
In terms of the in terms of the remaining variances, I like the site plan brought up here. We are in a corner lot here on this property. So when we look at the requirements, and we were working back and forth with the planning department on it, is we are requesting a side yard setback of 4.5 when the requirement is 5.7. However, the majority of our property, it's only on that feature that's at the corner, which is like a tower feature we created at the corner of the building. But I just want to note that to both curbs, which is to Phyllis Avenue and to our proper on Allister, our houses are about 11.5 meters away. We do have a very generous boulevard before our property lines. So our houses are set back 11.5 meters from both curbs, from both roadways. Now the majority of our flankage yard is within the within 5.5 meters of the side yard. The 4.5 meters is only for that tower feature at the corner, that rectangular tower feature. We've worked with the planning department to reduce the house. It was larger, and we reduced it to 0.56 times lot area. In addition, in working with planning department, the front yard setback, we have the averaging of the neighbors. So we took this in discussion with them, which we've done in many subdivisions as well. We did a step down approach. So our driveway is a little bit further down, almost lining up with 60, and then we stepped it closer to the 6 meter the 6 meters from the front yard setback. Our height requirements are a function of two issues. One is our house is fairly wide because it is a wide lot at 19.72 meters, and with the slope and a flat section, we have it a little bit higher, but we did reduce it. In addition, with the way the grading is of this lot, if you could put up the front elevation, the one with the garage view. Not the cover page, the actual one with the dimensions would help. The one prior, A4, there, that one. If you can zoom in, the established grade, which is the high point, is our garage of our lot. Our established grade is actually below grade, and that's our driving point where we have to make our finished floor elevation at the highest portion of our property. At that point, because we're going down a slight hill towards the corner, our established grade is below grade. But as you can see, our roof is not massive. It is not high. We've kept to a flat section with a pitched roof to comply with the requirements of a pitched roof. But it's not not that grand in terms of height. It's more a function that our measurement of our established grade is below grade about, I think it was about 0.4 meters, and then with the grading issues, we do have to have a slightly higher house. So I believe this is all meeting the 4 tests of the Planning Act here in terms of what we require for, and we meet all the other setbacks and coverage as well. So these little nuances are just for some of the architectural features, and I'm fine to actually include the site plan as part of the decision. So if there's any concern about the 4.4 meter side yard setback because of that corner tower, that it will only apply to that area.
That's a great comment and suggestion, Peter. So thank you very much for that. Any further remarks, or can we move on?
I know there'll be some questions, so I'll answer the questions as they come along, or when you give me the time from the neighbors.
Okay. All right. So members of the committee, any questions? All right. I see none at this time. Let's move to our first speaker, John Spears. Hello, John.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, John, we can hear you, sir. Go ahead, and you have 5 minutes.
Great, thanks very much. Just turning up my volume a bit. For starters, so good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today regarding the proposed new dwelling at 62 Alistair Avenue. My name is John Spears, and I live directly across the street at 59 Alistair Avenue for the past 35 years. And I'm speaking today not only on my behalf, but also for many of my neighbors. You've heard this in previous deputations where some people don't have the technology or aren't inclined to do these things. And frankly, this is my first deputation, so I'm hopefully going to stay within the bounds of what you need. And I'm talking on behalf of specifically those within the closest proximity to this new proposed build at 57, 60, and 61 Alistair Avenues. I happen to have the owners of 57 years in the dwelling at number 60 directly adjacent sitting with me today. So if you're able to, could you please put up the file CA opposition presentation CSV SWRA. I just want to speak to the first and second slides. So great, thanks very much. So there is the existing dwelling and the adjacent dwellings. Could you please put up the next slide? So there is sort of a schematic of the proposed dwelling, and I heard the term nuances. I don't think there's anything nuanced about that differential before and after. So I wanted to focus on your 4 criteria because I think they're the most relevant. So the first criteria, the variances requested are minor. They are not. I'm dealing in some percentages here, and you might want to deal in the actual numbers. But the front setback is a 60% variance from your code. So again, there's nothing nuanced about that. Nobody spoke to any of the adjacent neighbors about any of this beforehand. So I think I heard some reference to discuss things with people, but certainly none of us were contacted. Side setback variance is 23% different from code. The rear deck height is 61% different from code. The rear deck distance from the main wall, I think that might have been just withdrawn, but it was 48% different from code. The parking access is moved from one street around to another street. It's moved off Phyllis to Alistair Avenue. And the floor space is 25% different from variance. And the height is half a meter different in height. So notwithstanding, as a layperson and a member of the general public, and all of my neighbors, we see nothing minor about almost all of those. The second criteria is the general intent and purpose of the city's zoning code and or bylaws are maintained. Again, as a layman, reading these percentage variances and looking at the before and after schematic that you're looking at, there's 7 requests for significant variances for a single dwelling. That does not appear in any way to be aligned with the general intent and purpose of code. And again, as a general public layperson, when you've generated code, which I would expect is specifically for certain neighborhoods and sizes and characters and streetscapes, and this code is to the decimal point, when you get variances like this, there's nothing, that would appear that it's conforming to official plan or bylaw code when almost all of them are dramatically being asked to be altered. That leads me to the third criteria, which is the general intent and purpose of the official plan. So the variance requests do not align with or respect the surrounding dwellings, scale, or neighborhood character. I think there was reference to, the setback looking aligned to the rest of the street. Well, I would invite you to come and look at that sort of view. In no way, shape, or form does it align with the rest of the properties all the way down the street. The resulting significantly larger dwelling will materially and negatively affect street view and dynamics. Directly adjacent property owners will have their view and sunlight potentially negatively altered. The people at 60 Alistair have lived there for 57 years, and looking at the code changes, the light would be affected into their kitchen, their breakfast and dining areas. And I would expect that that's not the original intent of official plans and bylaws. There is a row of mature spruce trees that have been a neighborhood landscape landmark for decades, and proposing they should not be removed or damaged in any way. And I specifically remember when I moved into my home 35 years ago, one of the main reasons we purchased the home
So,
was
John,
neighborhood view and feel.
sorry, John,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you, sir, but you are at your 5 minutes. Could you please close up?
Yeah, so in conclusion, sort of all of the criteria that were established to approve this, the variances aren't minor. They look like, code hasn't been aligned with, official plans haven't been aligned with, and the sheer nature of, sort of the negative impact on the neighborhood feel and all of the rest of the dwellings. It wouldn't be, appropriate for the land use of this request, and so we would request in many of the neighbors that this proposal be rejected.
Okay.
Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. Members of the committee, any questions for John? All right, I don't see anyone. Thank you. We move on to our next speaker, and that would be Janet May. Hello, Janet, you there?
Oh, yes, sorry. The sound disappeared at
No
your
problem.
end.
No
Can
problem.
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, members of the Committee of Adjustment. My name is Janet May, and I'm on Harewood, which is 1 block west of Alistair. I am the director of the Cliffcrest Scarborough Village Southwest Residents Association. We are an incorporated residents association, which is registered and recognized by the City of Toronto. We are working to preserve the unique nature of our neighborhoods and do not support the application to replace the dwelling located at 62 Alistair Avenue. Can you please put up slide 1 of the presentation, of the slide? This is the existing modest affordable house that will be demolished. The character of this established neighborhood is modest 1.5-story houses that are affordable, intermingled with back splits and 2-story houses that are all within the generous zoning bylaws. Can you please go to the next slide? We are supportive of development that respects the existing characteristics of our neighborhood, but strenuously oppose overdevelopment which reduces privacy and does not respect the existing built form of the houses already here. And can you please go to the next slide? The community does not believe, the community believes that this proposal does not meet the intent and purpose of Toronto's official plan 4.1.5, which, as you know, is one of the tests that applications must meet. Development in established neighborhoods will respect and reinforce the existing physical character of each geographic neighborhood, including prevailing heights, massing, scale, density, and dwelling type of nearby residential properties. The community is disappointed that the applicant has not attempted to introduce themselves nor reach out to anyone to discuss this proposal. The application also includes a zoning waiver, a worrying trend that is increasing in Cliffcrest. Can you please pull up slide 5, which does not have a number, but it's the one after that one? Thank you. We fully understand that precedent does not come into your decision making, but I want to note that prior Committee of Adjustment approvals of new developments are changing the character of this immediate neighborhood. 36, 39, and 52 Allister are already built and received approvals beyond the generous zoning guidelines. 56 Allister is presently under construction and also received generous variances. The proposed FSI of 0.56 for 62 Phyllis is well outside the current range of most of the houses on Allister between Anson and Oak Ridge, and well beyond the permitted FSI. At this rate, the entire block will be demolished and replaced by oversized dwellings, which does not maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan 4.4, which states, no changes shall be made through rezoning, minor variance, consent, or other public action that are out of keeping with the physical character of the neighborhood. This change is not occurring in a gradual manner. We would really like to see the towers removed so that the front and side setbacks can be eliminated. We do not think that the tower feature fits in with the physical character of this established neighborhood. The Residents Association has noticed a trend with applicants to not properly answer the question on the application form. Why is it not possible to comply with the zoning bylaws? In this case, the applicant answers, new design to better fit the needs of the modern family and enhances character of the community. The applicant could build a very large house on this lot as of right. He does not answer why he needs to build an extremely large house that requires multiple variances. The residents who actually live in the area disagree that this enormous house will enhance the neighborhood. The applicant has not provided a rationale for his inability to comply with the zoning bylaws, and this makes the application incomplete. We would like the committee to ask applicants, especially developers, why did you design this house this way when you know what the bylaws are? What makes your property so different from every other lot in the neighborhood that you deserve special permission to approve your plans? We believe this application fails all of the 4 tests, and therefore we ask that the committee turn it down. Thank you for providing this opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Janet, for your comments and taking the time to speak with us. Any questions for Janet, members of the committee? Okay, I see none. All right. So let's get back to Peter Jurusik.
Yes, I had a chance to review the neighbors' comments. If you could put up the report from the Ratepayers Association that they're referring to. So 2 things I'd like to, the one drawing is the one with the site plan, with where they had the green and the red marked in. Just wanted to point out that when you look at the property, our setbacks, they're showing the green incorrectly in terms of what our required setbacks are towards the flankage yard. We are allowed 5.7, and they're lining it up with the neighboring house on Phyllis, which is not correct. Even if you look at 60, the greenhouse, the house is set back, the garage comes forward in a staggered look, and we kind of maintain that type of staggered projection to come out to balance off and soften up the views from that angle. And I want to point out again, we are 11.5 meters from our most tightest part of the property line at that far corner, the northeast corner. We are still 12 meters to the road. So in terms of any conversations with transportation in terms of sight lines and visibility, they had no concern because of that. When you go to the next one, which was the charts that showed the FSI and the GFA that they had, it's correct. She made mention that there's been a lot of change in the neighborhood. 56 is not listed on this drawing properly. As she mentioned, it's currently under construction. That house itself it was approved by the committee a couple of months ago. It's 412 square meters, which would put it as the highest one in the area, and that's 3 doors down. In terms of when you look at this chart, You look at the older fabric, which was 35 years ago, to what has been happening in the last 10, 15 years. The trend is for people wanting, not only on my client's property here, but as evident, even a few doors down at 56, 52 and on, we are now coming into line with what is other builders and other homeowners are wishing to desire for these properties. So in terms of the dynamics, as the official plan states, no neighborhood is static, it's dynamic. And when we look at this area and to see where the dynamic change is going, we are coming into line which what has been approved in the past and what the community is looking to move forward towards. As people purchase new properties, they're looking for larger homes as opposed to the wartime bungalows from the past. So in terms of the fabric or the nature of the community, it is changing. It is being dynamic, and we are going in line with what how changes are moving forward with this. In terms of the waiver, we did have a zoning notice, and in discussion with the planning department requesting us to do some changes, which we were happy to change to get planning support. The changes were as such where it's quicker for us just to mark it on the notice and send it in as a waiver. So we did have a zoning notice on that. The other issue I'd just like to note, lastly here, and I don't know if you have, if Eric, you have a site plan for the neighboring properties, is our house here is 350. This is a large neighborhood. However, our lot, it's much wider. Actually, that locational map is a good one there, actually. Sorry, the locational map. All our adjacent properties are larger lots, and we are a little bit of a corner that's a wider lot. I don't think anybody has an issue with our access of our vehicular access now being on Alistair, as where our driveway ends, we still have 13 meters to the curve, which is the minimum lot frontage. So wherever our garage is, we still have another 13 meters to the edge of the road. I've already discussed the height, and nobody's mentioned height here as well. The biggest issue is that I hear is about the size of the house, and we are lower in terms of the square footage of the other houses prevailing. However, when you look at their lot sizes, a little bit larger. But in terms of overall sizes, we are below what has been approved in the past, in the last 10 years. 52, I do recall that was something from about 8 years ago, and then 56 is one that has been approved a couple of months ago, and that's 412 square meters. And we're requesting 349 here, which is in line of what is moving forward in this neighborhood. If committee has any other questions, I'm willing to field them.
Thanks, Peter. Members of the committee, any questions? No? Okay, just confirming variance number 7 was removed. And there are conditions, and we've dealt with the speakers. Okay. All right, thank you, Peter. We will now take the matter into committee. Members of the committee, any thoughts, any comments? No? All right. If there are no thoughts or comments, can I please have a motion? As amended. Yes, Member Macaulay.
I'm going to make a comment. When I looked at this application, I read the history and saw that this was an application. This property was subject to an application several years ago where they wanted to put 2 semis on this lot. My thinking is we probably should be expecting these changes. And certainly one house in this community is better than 2 semis. The houses are getting bigger. And as Peter has said, he's got a bigger house, a big lot, and considerable changes. I just want to put that forward that, yes, this community is changing. The community association is doing a good job of tracking the changes. They're also doing a good job, and I would suggest that they may want to track what is outrageous to them. Not every application is outrageous to them. but that is up to them as to how they want to deal with this. Those are my comments at this stage.
Okay, thank you. So those were comments only. If there are no comments or questions, then can I please have a motion? Member Taylor, please go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm satisfied that the variances requested 1 through 6 meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. So I move approval of variances 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, subject to urban forestry condition number 2.
Okay, thank you. And may I have a seconder? Member Macaulay?
I'll second that motion.
And all in favor of this motion? Motion's carried and the application has been approved. Thank you. And the last application that we have for today at 66 Colonial Avenue. So I'm just going to do a name call for all the residents who have registered to speak, please find your place. Darlene and Paul Devine, Dr. Emilia and Evan C. King, Andrew and Mary Stamler, and Tanya Baksh. Okay, we are going to call upon the agent, Jonathan Bazowski. Hello, Jonathan.
Oh, sorry, Madam Chair, you cut out a little bit.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you very well, Jonathan. So please go ahead.
Good afternoon. If we could bring up the support material I filed, please.
Well,
So the proposal before you today is for a 2-story dwelling with an integral garage. There's 4 variants that are before you. I would consider 2 of them to be technical in nature. If we could please zoom in, please. The building length and building depth variants are not part of any type of livable space. That building depth and building length is simply caused by an excavation of the basement below, as well as a small covered veranda at grade at the rear. So what I provided you here is a highlighted measurement showing the actual dimension of the occupiable portion of the dwelling. That occupiable portion of the dwelling is 16.69 meters, which is below the zoning bylaw requirement of 17 meters. So to translate that into what's driving the increase of FSI, that increase of FSI is not related to any built form parameter of the zoning bylaw. The dwelling itself complies with front yard setback, has an extremely generous rear yard setback of 19.27 meters, and complies with both the side yard setbacks to the east and the west at 1.2 meters. When we look at an FSI increase that's related to a property of this magnitude being 15.24 meters or 50 feet wide by 45.72 meters or 150 feet deep. We look at that and then we start to say, is this property able to accommodate a larger dwelling? We now look into the design and the control parameters of the zoning bylaw that dictate this envelope. What I would say to you in terms of what's dictating this increase in the FSI is simply a larger lot with a larger home. Again, it is below the zoning bylaw requirement for livable space that is driving that increase of FSI by 0.31 meters in length. Could we please continue on to the next page, please?
Jonathan,
Again,
sorry,
I just provided each one of them with a highlighted portion showing where the livable portion of the dwelling is. Again, being 16.69 meters, we see the excavated basement, which drives that increase of the building length as well as the building depth. And if we could go to the next page, please. Again, this is the intermediate floor with the garage. The next page, please. Again, we see a 16.69 meter building length that is driving that FSI increase. Again, I'd just like to briefly address the height request that is before you. We can go to the graphic I provided for height. So again, what I've done here now is I've tried to illustrate what the difference is between a flat roof dwelling and a pitched roof dwelling. That 7.69 meters I'm showing there is to the rear of the house. That 7.69 meters represents to the top of the flat roof portion at the rear. The main wall height permitted under the zoning bylaw for a pitched roof would be 7.2 meters. So what would be permitted at the rear when we really get down to what the issues are that come to impact? We look at what could be a main wall height of 7.2 meters. That main wall height proposed at the rear is 7 meters, because again, that 7.69 meters includes the flat roof portion of the roof itself. So the main wall itself at the rear can exist as of right. And if it were to be a pitched roof, it could be 1.8 meters higher than what is proposed. That's same as at the front, again, but rather than being 7 meters, it would be 7.7 meters for a main wall height, which could then have an additional pitch. So the proposal before you today, in my opinion, is appropriate, as the FSI increase is not driven by a reduction of a front, rear, or either side yard setback, or a building length or depth that is actually for livable space. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
Jonathan, I have a question. When you say non-livable space, can you show me exactly where that non-livable space is, although it forms part of the building length?
Yes, so if we zoom in there, Eric, there's two aspects that do it. So right here we see the 16.69 meters that I've highlighted. It is driven by the excavation of the basement below grade, as well as a covered porch at the rear. Although the covered porch at the rear is not considered a main wall, it does not support it. It is actually the basement portion that is considered the rear main wall of the dwelling that drives the request for building length and building depth, because we would see the 16.69 meters at the top, plus a 0.3 meter small return for the front entrance, plus the 3 meters for the excavated portion below. So the FSI itself is not driven by any type of variance that's increasing or requesting relief from any portion of the zoning bylaw. The dwelling itself, for occupiable livable space above grade, is 16.69 meters in building length, as well as building depth.
Okay.
And if we go back to the elevation itself, we may be able to see it a little bit better. Yes. So what we see there is that actual portion of the dwelling is 16.69 meters. We take the excavated portion of the basement because it forms a part of the main wall, because it is supporting up above. And that is where the zoning bylaw takes building length as well as building depth too.
But that's not atypical. This is a typical thing for any building, right? That there's
100%,
always
Madam Chair.
yeah, there's always the excavated basement or the portion that constitutes part of the building length. So I see where you're going with this. I think you're trying to tie it more with the FSI as opposed to the building length. So I can see where you're going with regards to the FSI by this justification.
So correct, Madam Chair. If we go back, a uncovered basement walkout would not go into building length or building depth. When you have the veranda up above or a walkout patio off the first floor with that excavated cold room, that actually forms the building length and building depth because it's structurally connected and it's considered to be a main wall.
Correct.
If it were to be an excavated basement with a wood deck up above that wouldn't have a wall, it would then not go into building length or building depth.
Correct.
But because that is a concrete excavated cold room at the rear, it forms a part of the main front and rear wall of the building, which is how the zoning bylaw dictates how you assess building length and building depth.
Okay, so all you were trying to demonstrate is that this increase in the building length is not causing, it is resulting into an increased FSI, but a part of that is non-livable, non-habitable, correct?
Correct, Madam Chair,
Okay.
absolutely.
That's all I wanted to clarify. Member Macaulay.
Okay. It took me a few minutes to try to figure out what he was talking about. And I understand that underground, you're got floor space in or square footage that the zoning bylaw recognizes. I think we're really starting to try to confuse everybody. I've heard in the city of Toronto where they're building underground, big extensions of the house underground, and they're starting to call them iceberg houses because there's a larger underground than there is above ground. You're suggesting that because of your underground, you need to change the zoning bylaw. I was suggesting if you wanted to meet the zoning bylaw, you just include all of it and shorten some of the above ground. I think we're just playing tricks here.
Through you, Madam Chair, I completely disagree with that statement. This is an excavated cold room below grade. It's merely it could be a wine cellar. There is nothing above it that is used or enclosed. So this is just essentially a wine cellar below grade. There's absolutely no occupiable area above grade that drives that building length or building depth. It's simply a below grade, unheated cold room.
If it's a below grade, unheated cold room, as you describe it, why is the zoning bylaw including it as part of the total gross floor area?
Oh, and through you, Madam Chair, maybe Ms. McCauley, maybe I wasn't quite understood. What I was saying is that the gross floor area increase isn't being driven by any request above grade. The below grade cold room is not included in the FSI. What my point was that the increase of FSI we're requesting has nothing to do with anything above grade. That does not get included in FSI, but that gets included in the building length and the building depth because it's considered to be in this case, a rear main wall. It has no part of the FSI. What I was getting at was the FSI is not driven by any request for a building length or building depth above grade. This you would not be able to see and would not have any impact on adjacent neighbors.
Okay. It's been long and I'm getting, can I go on building height? I note that your request for building height is 8.2, but the drawing you showed me was 7.69. What are you asking for?
Well, we're asking for 8.2 at the front. There's two levels of the roof that you can see there. So what I was illustrating is that 8.2 isn't for the entire dwelling. If you see here, that 7.69 is the projection at the rear. So the flat roof at the rear is lower than that flat roof that comes at the front. So the impact, as it would be on an adjacent neighbor, right, would be as a 7.7 meter high roof, not 8.2. Additionally with that, the other point I was making had to do with the zoning bylaw permitting a 7.2 meter main wall height for a pitched roof dwelling. So if we actually take the thick gray portion at the front and we take that off, that portion is at 7 meters. That would be a permitted main wall height. A pitched roof would then be permitted to go an extra 2 meters on top of that. So my point there was trying to look back at impact on adjacent neighbors. In this case, the impact on the adjacent neighbor is a 7.7 meter flat roof dwelling at the rear, which would be in your amenity space, reducing that impact that somebody might see.
Okay. Thank you. I think, Member McCauley, if you have, we just have a few neighbors waiting, so maybe we can get going with those neighbors and then we can always come back. Thank you, Jonathan. We'll move to our first registered speaker, Darlene and Paul Devine.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Hi, my name is Paul Devine. I live at 59 Colonial Avenue, which is across the street from the proposal. Yes, after listening to the agent speak there, I'm not very adverse to these situations. This is my first time being a part of anything like this. So yes, there's been a lot of confusion injected there. But I would say as far as the first thing goes, the height proposal of 8.2 meters, he says that's only at the front of the property. Mm-hmm. Well, that's fine, but that still is above the allotable height. And that is exactly what I'd be looking at from my view. Also, when he talks about the overall length of the property, if I'm a little confused, if he doesn't go beyond what is allowed, then why is he applying for a variance of 19.99 meters? And then he also speaks to the fact where he says it's a cold storage room in the basement and there's no usable space above it. But it certainly looks like there's a back porch installed on top of that, and that's a usable space that would definitely be intrusive onto the neighbors, since this could extend so far back past the existing buildings. We talk about here about what's allowable. I'd just like to speak a little bit to what's existing. The existing homes on both sides of the property, across the street, and the majority of them in this whole section of the street are 1,000 square foot bungalows. So his proposal for 4,898 square feet, not including the basement, is almost 5 times the size of what's existing. So when you look at the neighbor of 45-foot depth and his proposal overall is 65 feet, although they say it's not livable space, it's occupiable space, which be on the back porch there, the back veranda. So yes, after hearing the agent speak, I'm a little confused at the points he was trying to make, but I'll go back to the Committee of Adjustment and Minor Variances and their how they approve it. And I'd make the first point that says the variance request should be minor. And I would say these variants that are requested are definitely not minor. And do they follow the general intent and purpose of the city zoning code and bylaws? No, I feel that they do not. They're asking for bigger, longer, and more square footage than what's allowable. It would be overpowering and obtrusive, the size of the structure with the surrounding existing buildings. So I would say that I would request to reject the proposal for 66 Colonial Avenue as it is. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you for your time, Madam Chair and committee members.
Thank you very much, Paul, for taking the time to speak with us. We will certainly get the answers from Jonathan when he's back to respond. Okay. Members of the committee, any questions? Yeah, for sure. I have some questions as well, so we'll see. Members of the committee, any questions of Paul? I see none. All right, okay. We'll move to our next speaker or speakers, Dr. Amelia and Evan C. King. Hello?
How are you? Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Perfect. Good afternoon. I just want to mention I'm also sitting here with Marie, our next door neighbor over at 68 because of internet issues. So again, my name is Dr. Amelia King. I live over at 64 Colonial Avenue. I completely agree with our neighbor Paul. My husband and I moved to our home about 3 years ago for precisely the character and living experience the proposed variances at 66 Colonial Avenue threatened to destroy. When you arrive in our neighborhood right now and on our street, it feels like you're in cottage country with the old majestic trees and bungalows. We are setting roots here, raising our newborn daughter here, growing our business here, and we plan to be here for the long term. In short, we see this proposal as a threat to our quality of life. Can you please pull up page 2 in the RA presentation? Okay. So, my husband and I are both supportive of development that respects the existing characteristics of our neighborhood, but strenuously oppose overdevelopment, which removes the healthy tree canopy, reduces privacy, and does not respect the built form of the existing homes. As Member Macaulay mentioned, this is an iceberg home, and the agent is being disingenuous and purposefully confusing. This is an iceberg home whether or not the egregious FSI is, quote, driven by livable space or not. I understand that the committee has 4 tests that they need to base their decisions on. If one test fails, you should be refusing this application. I fully understand that precedent doesn't come into your decision-making process, but I did want to note that prior COA approvals in our area of new developments are changing the character of our neighborhood. I believe that this proposed house is not keeping with the prevailing heights, scale, and density of houses in our neighborhood based on official plan policy 4.1.5C. The owner of this house did not approach us about this proposal. He mentioned in passing that he bought the home for his son, but he was unsure at the time if his son, quote, wanted it, so it could be a flip. Actually, in our first ever interaction, Mr. Singh attempted to persuade me into agreeing that the striking 50-plus-year-old silver maple, tree number 2 from his plan, that is at risk of being removed, the one that provides shade and beauty to our neighboring home, should be torn down. I made it clear that I disagreed with that notion. I believe that the majestic tree canopy in our neighborhood is a shared resource that it is our duty and privilege as homeowners to protect, especially given the state of the environment. My husband and I are also extremely concerned about the potential impact the removal of tree number 2 will have on our own beloved 100-plus-year-old silver maple, tree number 4 in the plan. In any case, it wasn't until we received the public notice that we were made aware of the magnitude of their proposed development. This did not allow us neighbors to express our concerns, to come up to a proposal collaboratively, especially as this owner resides at the end of our street in a new development that is within the generous zoning guidelines. In this application, there are 4 variances beyond the generous zoning guidelines, but we are strenuously opposed to 3 of the 4 variances being requested. Excessive FSI, again, almost 5,000 square feet, or 63.1% bigger than the bylaws allow, building height and building length. Can you please pull up page 6 in the RA presentation? Using Toronto Interactive Maps, the RA assisted in preparing the building length chart on the screen. As you can see, the building length of our abutting homes and a majority of the homes on Colonial Avenue are below 15 meters, but this proposed development is requesting a variance of 19.99 meters to accommodate their excessive floor space and their desirability for below-grade space, which we heard. While a majority of their building length for this proposed development would be 16.69 meters, which is, yes, below the maximum allowed building length of 17 meters, the requested variance today in this application for a building length 19.99 meters, or 2.99 meters longer than permitted, to accommodate the desired iceberg below-grade space. So this requested building length is out of the character of the homes on Colonial Avenue and well beyond the allowed building length. This excessively long building would have a negative impact on our abutting home, with its long massing and towering effect impacting our privacy and enjoyment of our property. As you can see from the building length chart, that there are some homes that do have longer building lengths than the average of 13.21 meters. Some of the homes with longer building lengths are on the other side of Colonial and not in the immediate area of this proposed development.
So,
and a longer
sorry,
building
Dr.
length-
Amelia, I may have to remind you, your time's up, so you may want to close your remarks, please.
Sure, I'm wrapping up, for sure. Anyways, they're larger, but those larger, the ones that are larger than average have been here for over 20 years prior to the current zoning guidelines. So in closing, we welcome and support positive development in our neighborhood, but the requested variances in this application are not minor. The proposed home is huge. It will destroy our privacy, destroy the tree canopy, and the home is out of character with the street. None of the homes are this large, even with the already generous bylaw.
Okay, all right.
And when we upgrade our home, I just want to say that we also want to upgrade our home, but we will do it within the existing bylaws because they are already generous.
Understood.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for speaking with us. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for Dr. Amelia? I see none. Okay, we'll move on to our next speaker, Marie Stamler, who I believe was with Dr. Amelia. So, Marie Stamler.
Good afternoon. My husband and I lived at 68 Colonial Avenue for the past 41 years. The pleasure of raising our family here. Our home is our refuge now that we are retired, and this proposed development will significantly impact the quality and enjoyment of our daily lives. I understand the committee has 4 tests that they need to base their decisions on, and if one test fails, the application should be refused. I'd like to refer to the frontal overlay on page 2 of the Residents Association presentation. I believe that this proposed house is not in keeping with the prevailing height, massing, scale, and density of the houses in our neighborhood, as referred to in the official plan policy 4.1.5C. The owner of this property did approach us, the focus of the discussion was on the health of our large silver maple tree that will be severely impacted during this development. It wasn't until we received the public notice that we were made aware of the magnitude of their proposed development. This did not allow us as neighbors to express our concerns and come to a collaborative proposal as neighbors, especially since the owner resides at the end of our street in a new development house, which is within the generous zoning guidelines. In this application, there are 4 excessive variances beyond the generous zoning guidelines. We are strenuously opposed to 3 of the 4 variances being requested, which are massive FSI, building length, and building height. They are requesting a dwelling height of 8.2 meters, which is 1 meter taller than the permitted 7.2 meters. While this may seem numerically minor, you can see in the character of the neighborhood that most of the surrounding homes are single-story dwellings that have an average height around 6.5 meters. They're allowed to build a home with a dwelling height of 7.2 meters with a flat or shallow roof, but this is already 0.7 meters higher than the average height of the surrounding homes. They're requesting an additional 1.7 meters above our abutting homes, and this additional height is not minor. This proposed development would tower our adjacent bungalow homes, and this massive effect will cast a shadow, diminishing the natural light throughout the day. Our homes are situated east and west with similar alignments as prior proposed dwelling height developments in the neighborhood, which were previously opposed by the Residents Association. In prior applications in the neighborhood, the Residents Association provided sun shadow studies that demonstrated diminished natural light for neighboring homes at various times throughout the day. I'm aware this does not require sun shadow studies for residential developments, but there definitely would be an impact on our natural light in the neighboring homes with this massive development. I also wanted to note that in the zoning waiver completed by the applicant, this proposed development outlining the variance for building height is described as a 2-story home. When looking at the front elevation, it's quite evident that this proposed new dwelling presents itself as a 3-story home, as there are 2 levels above the garage. The proposal represents an excessively large footprint, floor footprint, which is not in character in the immediate area, negatively impacting the abutting neighbors. The development of the proposed increase in building length of this home will damage our 50-plus-year-old silver maple tree close to our property line. Due to the proposed increase in building length and building mass, at least a third to 1/2 of the tree would need to be removed to accommodate this development. This would have a great impact on the tree canopy and root system and lead to potential removal of the remaining portion in the future. While I understand this is not part of the decision-making process for this panel, the damage to this tree would impact our health and enjoyment of our property, not to mention our future liability if the health of this tree declines in future years. We're also concerned about the watershed between our 2 homes, which would result in flooding of our patio and side entrance. House after house in our neighborhood is being bought by developers and demolished to build excessively large new homes beyond the already generous zoning guidelines in place. This does not represent appropriate development. It changes the character of our neighborhood and impacts the affordability of homes for families. In closing, we welcome and support positive developments in our neighborhood. The requested variances in this application are not minor and are not within the prevailing character of our neighborhood. As a result, we agree and join our neighbors and request that the committee reject this application. Thank you for providing this opportunity to address you.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Mary. Just wanted to let you know that Urban Forestry has reviewed this application and they have provided us with their memo. And I don't see any, maybe there is a tree being removed, but I do see they have one condition, should the committee approve it, that the applicant require or complete a permit application to injure or remove a tree. So that's the one that has been put forward to us. I'm not sure if other trees are being removed, but Urban Forestry does review these applications and provide us with their recommendation as well. The other piece is the sun and shadow study. Yes, residential developments do not require sun and shadow study. You're right, the current or the prevailing character is one-story bungalows, but the bylaw allows a two-story building up to 7 meters for a flat roof. And I'm not sure if it's 9 meters, 11 meters, but with a pitched roof. So in theory, they could put a taller building up to 9 or 11 meters. Again, I don't have the bylaw in front of me, but definitely taller building with a pitched roof here. So, but as of right, a two-story building is permitted on these properties. I just wanted to clarify that that's the permission under the zoning. All right, thank you. I'll go back to the applicant. So Jonathan Biskowski, can we please have him? No, I think there's one more speaker.
Chair.
I'm sorry, there's one more speaker. My apologies, Jonathan. There's one more speaker. I'm going to ask Tanya. She's not there? Okay. So Tanya Baksh was a registered speaker, but she's not signed in for this application. Okay, now we can come to you, Jonathan.
Okay, I would like to first deal with the building length and building depth variance. If we could just bring up that graphic I presented once again. Again, we look at essentially the impact. The official plan looks to respect and reinforce. The zoning bylaw is there to limit impact. If we look at the impact that's driving the building length and building depth, that is the basement extension. That is not visible from either adjacent neighbor to the east or the west. So I don't see how that would be an impact that would influence or would affect somebody's life to the east and the west. It is not livable space. It is not habitable. It is not heated. There is nothing sneaky trying to be done here. You know, I'm in front of this committee probably more than 100 times a year. This is the livable portion is not beyond 17 meters. That's a fact. The next thing I'd like to look at, and I don't believe I included it in my presentation, if we could bring up the front elevation, please. And again, just while we're doing that, I would also like to speak to a couple of things that the side yard setback is as per the zoning bylaw. And like Madam Chair said, Urban Forestry has reviewed this. And as I'm sure this committee knows, if Urban Forestry has having more and more of an issue with something, they will recommend a flat outright refusal. So if we could just bring up the front elevation, please. I'd like to address the height. And also, I would also like to say that that side yard setback is zoning bylaw compliant. So if that basement area were to be removed, we would lose the requirement for a building length and a building depth variance.
Through the chair, sorry, Jonathan, I'm not seeing a front elevation. I just see the west elevation here.
Eric, I didn't submit it. Do you just have a set of plans you could bring up? Sorry, it's not in my package.
No, I can't. Sorry, I can't do that.
Okay, can you zoom in on the right, please, which would be the front?
So the front portion.
Yeah, got you.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so what I'd like to do is now speak a little bit to the two aspects of the zoning bylaw that control height. One is for a flat roof dwelling. One is for a pitched dwelling. The way the pitched dwelling works is it's 2.5 meters less than the required, or 7 meters. In this case, with a permitted pitched roof of 9 meters, the greater of those two numbers is 7 meters. That bottom portion that we see there would essentially be more or less 7 meters. That roof and that wall height is permitted. What we're here for is a flat roof projection at the front. And this elevation itself is not a flat projection with one continuous roof off the front. There are two different levels. So in terms of what impact, again, the zoning bylaw is here to limit impact. If we look at the impact from the rear, that impact from the rear is for a 7.69 meter full projection, including the structure of the roof. That could be permitted at 7 meters plus an extra 2 meters for the height with a pitched roof. So it's important we remember how impact is going to be to those adjacent neighbors. Yes, the main wall would be over in height by essentially 2 feet, but you would also be permitted an extra 4 feet of pitched roof on top of that. So in terms of the driving forces behind what is before you today, the building length, just to summarize, and depth is not a driving force behind the FSI. If that basement were to be removed, we would not have a building length or a building depth variance. In terms of that front facade, this is a two-story dwelling. I do have a zoning review. Scarborough building is extremely taxed now, and you're 8 to 10 weeks for a new review. This was done under a waiver as some changes were made, but this is a two-story dwelling. And again, the bylaw envisions a dwelling that could be 7 meters with an extra 2 meters of height. This 8.2 meter flat roof dwelling is for an undulating roof at the front that is not flat and is further reduced at the rear to limit impact on any adjacent neighbor. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Members of the committee, questions for Jonathan? Member Gary, please go ahead.
Well, Jonathan, what about removing that basement? And if we do, doesn't that deal with the issue of building length and building depth? So I'm wondering if you can make that change.
Through you, Madam Chair, if you could give me 30 seconds to possibly call, and I know we are at the end of the agenda, and you know, maybe Colin could tell some stories or something, but I would maybe need about 30 seconds and we could get back to you if we could eliminate that.
Okay, we'll give you 30 seconds, but Colin tells long stories, so I'm not going to ask him. So you go ahead.
Thank you.
Yes, I see two hands raised. Member Macaulay, Member Gary. Member Macaulay, you can go ahead.
I'm just going to alert you that when he comes back, I have a comment as well.
Okay. And Member Gary?
Well, I just wanted to see if any of the other members wanted to weigh in. Frankly, these planning applications are getting, you know, more and more difficult to decide.
So Gary, well, we can let's
yeah.
park it. Let's park it for now. Once the
Okay.
applicant is back,
Okay.
we're in the middle of the hearing, so I wouldn't want to raise comments in the absence. And if it's a general sort of comment, we can deal with it under other business on the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, 30 seconds is up. Jonathan? Yeah, so he's not here. So Jonathan, are you there?
I'm back, Madam Chair.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, Madam Chair. Okay, I'm willing to remove the building length and the building depth request.
You're willing to remove the building depth and building length request?
Length request.
Okay, so
yes.
You will comply with those two. Does that affect any other variance?
It does not.
It does
No,
not.
that was kind of the crux of my presentation was it really doesn't affect any other variance.
Correct, and I just want to confirm in case.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So Madam Chair, I will be proposing to remove variance number 3 as well as variance number 4.
Okay, and you will keep variance number 1 and number 2. Number 1 deals
Correct.
with FSI and 2 deals with the height.
Correct.
Okay, we have that confirmation. So Member McKay, you're satisfied?
Yes, appreciate seeing that change.
Okay, thank you. All right, Member McCauley, you had a comment?
Yes, I had a comment. Could staff bring up the building facade, the height where it shows 3 stories? That one. No, let's go back to that one. What I'm looking at here and I'm thinking about is what is the difference in building height in the zoning bylaw if you're a flat roof versus a mansard roof or a pitched roof. And if you're a pitched roof, you could be higher, and if you are a flat roof, you are set at 7.7 meters.
Correct.
And just let me finish. I believe the reason for the difference is the impact, the visual impact of the facade. You've got a large facade. It's a flat facade. It's, if you want, in your face, and it's not softened by roof and eaves and architectural features, so that the zones really do make a difference between a flat roof and a pitched roof, saying that the impact of the facade is really what they are trying to control. And so when I'm looking at this 7.69, or in your case, it's 8.2, but knowing that if it was a pitched roof, you could have 9 meters, I was questioning why 9 meters is okay and 8.2 isn't. And I think you can see it right here, that flat facade showing what really does appear to be 3 stories is the impact that you're getting from that flat roof. And that is why a flat roof is normally required to be lower than a pitched roof. So you've asked me to look at this and say, am I satisfied that 8.2 is appropriate? And I think my answer now is no, I'm not satisfied. So I just wanted to raise that comment for the consideration of the other members.
Any comments, members? Member Said?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Jonathan, for removing the variance number 3 and 4, which is a good change, and we have a lot of discussion on the length and depth. Some factors were really confusing there. But now I'll focus on variance number 1 and variance number 2. As far as the height is concerned, I think, Madam Chair, the applicant have 2 different impacts. While looking from the rear side, the height of the building is 7.6, and that impact is low. But while looking from the front side, the total height is 8.2, and that remains there. That is a fact. And although it's not a 3-story building, but you see the impact of looking from the streetscape, it's looked like a 3-story building. But even if it is not three-story building, the height, it's a fact that the variance is quite big, 8.2 for this flat roof. As far as the FSI is concerned, I still believe it's a much bigger house. It's have a much bigger FSI as allowed. So that variance is quite a significant variance. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I think we've had a good discussion. I want to go back quickly to Jonathan, and then we're going to take the matter into committee. So, Jonathan, your closing remarks, please. Oh, Jonathan.
Mass. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you hear anything I said?
No, I did not hear anything you said.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll start again. I generally agree with, through you, Madam Chair, I generally agree with most of what with Ms. McCauley said of the intent of the flat roof and the pitched roof, but largely the intent behind limiting flat roofs. Again, whether this was a mansard, pitched, or flat roof, that elevation, meaning 2 floors above the garage, would be there. That wouldn't change. All that would change is you would have a small portion at the side to comply with the main wall height, and then a larger roof mass that would actually be facing the street. So remember, the limitation you have is for 60% of the front or the side main walls. And I have a feeling I'm getting overly planning technical here. I'm used to talking about this for 8 hours at a TLAB hearing, but your massing is actually reduced of what faces the street from a flat roof dwelling, especially one that has 2 different levels that faces the street. When you have a mansard and you have a higher height at 9 meters with a lower eave, you actually see more mass when it faces the street. Yes, a flat roof modern dwelling takes a more boxier form to it, but the actual mass is reduced by not having that roof that's facing you. And in this case, because the left, and I'm my apologies for not including a front elevation. The actual front elevation has 2 separate heights, with the right side being at 8.2 and the left side being reduced. So we actually see 2 different forms that are facing the street. In terms of the FSI, again, this is a 50 by 150 foot lot that is below the maximum building length and the building depth, still notwithstanding the removal of the below grade areas, in addition to being compliant with the front yard setback and the rear yard setback. And as I mentioned before, there's a 19.27 meter rear yard setback. You're looking at essentially 65 feet from the rear wall of the dwelling to the rear property line. Again, the FSI as it's massed from the street, save the flat roof dwelling, is as per the zoning bylaw. That mass is acceptable. All that we would be talking about with a mansard roof would be pinch pointing the 2 corners and then creating a pitch and having roof facing the street.
So Jonathan,
Yeah.
we found the elevation. It is in the package. It was just separately placed.
Minimized.
Right
See,
there.
so we see different levels at the front there. So that 8.2 is on the left side, whereas that right side is at 7.2. This is exactly what I wanted to show. That 7.21 meters on the right side is essentially the permitted main wall height for a pitched roof. So because we have 2 different levels, it starts to bring down that reduction of the massing and how it looks and feels on the street.
So it's staggered. It's not 8.2 all across.
Correct.
It's 7.2 for a portion, then it raises where the parapet is for the middle section, and it kind of falls down again. Okay, all right.
It's a little over 7.2 to the top of the finished roof, but what I was looking at, Madam Chair, was that main wall height provision, which dictates a pitched roof. Flat roof or shallow dwellings don't have main wall height provisions. Only pitched roof heights have main wall height provisions in the zoning bylaw.
So Jonathan, I'm looking at this plan, and on one side it's 8.8. I guess the finished, it's the height from the finished floor elevation, which is coming at 8.2. Okay.
Correct, Madam Chair.
All right, so 8.2 on, if you look at this drawing in front of you, on the left side, 8.2, then it goes up a little bit in the center portion with the parapet, and then it kind of comes down. Okay. All right, so we have this. Just a thought, should the committee wish to approve this, we can always tie it to the plans as well, just so that the height is controlled or is not consistently 8.2 all across. So just wanted to put it out there if the committee wants to approve it, but for now we're still talking. I think we've had some good discussion. We got the clarification as well on the height, and the two variances are being have been withdrawn. Okay, so thank you, Jonathan, for your time. I'm going to take the matter into committee now.
Thank you, committee.
And committee members, over to you. Member Macaulay.
We had a lot of talk on this one. It's raised a number of issues and a number of things that we're looking at. And basically what we're trying to look at, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Basically what we're trying to look at is this a variance? Is it appropriate? Does it fit into the community? And we know that this community is an older community of one-story houses. So what is the impact of this development on that community? And we must also remind ourselves that whatever gets approved here will be what will be asked for 2 doors down, 3 doors down. It's community that's in change.
But Member Macaulay, I also want to remind you that we're looking at the existing or the prevailing context versus the planned context. Okay, I agree with you. Whatever we approve here would set a precedent, so that's completely within the jurisdiction of the committee. But what I'm going to say is that should redevelopment occur here through all along the street, there will be 2-story houses here.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. We are going to have 2-story houses. We are going to have change. That's what I'm looking at. And I'm having some difficulty with this application. Bearing in mind, it's a big lot. It's 50 by 150. But why does it need an FSI of 653%? 4,550 square foot house. That is a huge house on a big lot. It was the same issue we were having with the building height. Why does it have to be 8.2? What's wrong with the 7.7? Or what's wrong with the zoning bylaw that he needs to be a little bit higher? And when we look at it, it's not just a little bit higher, but then you add the parapet. So yes, it is a little bit higher. And the appearance is a 3-story house, not a 2-story house. He's dropped.
But technically it is a 2-story house. It's not a 3-story. It may appear as a 3-story. It is a 2-story house.
I'm agreeing with you that technically it's a 2-story house. Technically, it's got a height that is permitted, and it's got a parapet that's permitted, and a flat facade house is permitted. All of those things are permitted. What I'm saying is when I'm looking at putting all these things together, I don't like the picture. I don't like the added gross floor area of 455 or 0.65, the floor area versus 5. I don't like the length. He's changed that. I think what he's trying to do is too big, too much. It's requiring too high, too much massing, and too much density. Okay. And that is not appropriate for this area, bearing in mind that this will be setting the precedent for everything else on that street.
100%. Okay. All right, Member Macaulay, I think you've given us good comments. Now I'm looking for a motion. We've spent almost an hour on this application. All right, Member Macaulay, go ahead.
If no one else is ready for a motion, I'll put a motion to refuse this application in its entirety. I recognize that Jonathan has tried, but I think the application in its entirety does not meet the requirements of a minor variance. It has too high, too much density, and too much massing.
Okay. May I have a seconder, please?
Through the chair,
amended.
as amended?
Even if you're refusing?
It doesn't matter whether it's amended or not.
I understand, but
If I am
for the
refusing,
record, it needs to
yeah.
be, because the applicant has made modifications, so it needs to be reflected in the motion.
So the
right.
refusal is
I
based
will
on the
recognize
application?
as amended.
Okay. May I have a seconder, please? Member Said seconds it. All in favor of this motion? All opposed? Myself and Member Taylor oppose the motion. However, the motion is carried and the application has been refused. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the agenda for today. Let's get back to so we've dealt with all the applications. We are now going to go to the agenda, and the next item is other business. Is there any other business? And Member Gary, you had a comment about?
Through the chair, unless it's relating to an application, I would suggest that.
No, I was about to.
Okay, sorry.
If it's
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm content to just leave things as they are, and not to bring this up as other business.
Okay, thank you very much. And so if there's no other business, we can move to the next item, which is TLAB appeals. So we've been advised that of the TLAB appeals and TLAB decisions and orders from the last hearings. Okay, and then the date of the next meeting is July 21st, 2022. I need a motion to adjourn. We all move to adjourn, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Have a good night and see you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.